In the Fornia kingdom, tradition held that every royal family member received a gift from the goddess upon turning 13. Theodulf, the third prince of Fornia, trained relentlessly with a wooden sword in the palace courtyard, refusing to give up despite his lack of natural talent. His personal maid, Layla Orstein, a former S-rank adventurer, sparred against him. She warned that a defense-only strategy would eventually leave an opening exhausted. After the session, Theodulf collapsed onto the grass, praising Layla's skill, beauty, and talents. Theodulf brushed off the compliments, insisting Layla was more incredible than he'd ever be since he couldn't even use magic. Layla joked about trying to wipe the sweat from his face, only to accidentally splash him with water instead, catching him off guard. Niels, the second prince, approached with his usual teasing, mocking Theodulf for training so hard despite having no talent, since every royal received a gift at 13. Anyway, Niels demonstrated his own magical prowess, blasting through stone pillars with ease and boasting about the pointlessness of effort when powerful gifts existed. Niels needled Theodulf further, wondering aloud what worthless gift he'd end up with, since a gift was said to reflect the receiver's personality and traits. Layla hugged Theodulf, sensing he'd been hurt by the mockery. Undeterred, Theodulf declared he couldn't wait for the ceremony that night. Beaming with confidence, Theodulf assured Layla he'd receive an amazing gift for certain. Layla thanked him for his optimism. That night, under the moonlit castle, the ceremony began. As Theodulf stepped forward, the announcement stunned everyone. He hadn't received a gift at all. Theodulf stood frozen, confused, and devastated, while nobles murmured in disbelief that a royal could fail to receive one. Niels burst into mocking laughter. Niels teased him openly, calling him a riot despite the sacred setting, only offering a half-hearted apology when their father, the king, scolded him for the outburst. King Gauss Discard glared down at his son, expressing open disappointment and declaring he wouldn't allow someone forsaken by the goddess to remain in the castle. Niels leaned in, suggesting his father proceed with an idea he proposed earlier, calling it perfect for a talentless failure. The king agreed. Before the entire court, the king formally appointed Theodulf as Lord of the Land of Death, a title that shocked the prince into protest. Theodulf argued that the Land of Death was uninhabitable, filled with toxic air and dangerous monsters, no place for any human to rule. The king silenced him instantly, calling him a talentless hack and ordering him to gather his belongings and leave for the wasteland immediately. As a king's command could not be defied, Niels mocked him one final time, calling it a shame, alone and staring into the darkness. Theodulf realized the truth. He was being exiled from his own kingdom. Niels shrugged off his brother's fate, wishing him luck surviving the Land of Death while declaring he'd simply become the next king in the meantime. Theodulf turned away without another word. The next day arrived, and a carriage waited outside the capital's gates to carry him off. As he departed, neither his father nor his brother came to see him off. Only the servants and citizens he'd grown close to gathered to wave goodbye. Alone in his thoughts, Theodulf regretted not being able to say goodbye to Layla until her voice answered from right beside him. He hadn't been able to find her anywhere in the crowd, yet somehow she'd already made her way into the carriage with him. Inside, Layla sat calmly across from him as the carriage rolled forward, the two now traveling together toward the wasteland. Confused, Theodulf reminded her that only he had been ordered to the Land of Death, insisting she didn't have to come. Layla replied simply that she would be wherever he was, trusting they could overcome anything together. Elsewhere, back in the capital, a memory surfaced. A furious noblewoman had once slammed her fist down, declaring herself his personal maid no matter if the destination was hell or the demon realm itself. That same maid had stood firm and repeated her vow, promising she would follow him wherever he went. Layla asked if he was truly certain about heading into such danger. Another voice, calm and resolute, answered that, yes, this was exactly what she wanted. Theodulf thanked her quietly. Layla brushed it off, saying it was just his imagination, though a faint whisper hinted she was secretly pleased to finally be alone with him. The carriage rolled on through open countryside, snow and mountains gone from the scene. Having Layla beside him brought Theodulf real comfort, though reaching the Land of Death would still take several days and require switching carriages along the way. He admitted just how nervous he truly felt. During a rest stop, Theodulf dozed off, still wondering why he alone had failed to receive a gift, while townsfolk and Layla went about preparing for the next leg of the journey. His thoughts drifted further, questioning whether his failure was tied to the fact he wasn't originally from this world at all. Since in his past life he had been an ordinary salaryman, he recalled that former life vividly, buried in paperwork, sighing under fluorescent office lights, working long hours with no end in sight. Even after returning home each night, the work never stopped, and he'd trudge back through dark streets carrying the same exhaustion. He remembered organizing data for the next day's meetings, craving nothing more than a shower, admitting quietly that he had simply been a wage slave, wishing only for time to game again. One night, dead tired, his vision blurred as he collapsed. He remembered being obsessed with a crafting game back in his student years but never having time for it once he entered the workforce. He awoke somewhere impossible, greeted by a radiant winged woman shouting a cheerful welcome to the realm of the gods, addressing him as Mr. Mashima. She introduced herself as the goddess Vesta, gently breaking the shocking news that he had, in fact, passed away. The goddess raised her fist, declaring she would grant him a special power to make up for his sudden, unfair death. Learning he'd be sent to another world, Theodulf immediately requested the power of crafting, wanting something convenient and familiar for an unfamiliar life ahead. He explained he'd been addicted to a certain crafting game back in his student days and asked for that same power. The goddess agreed and began the process of granting it. Back in the present, Layla gently roused him aboard the carriage, informing him they had finally arrived, both flustered to realize he'd fallen asleep on her lap. The waiting coachman grumbled about the delay, impatient to leave the desolate area, while Layla admitted she hadn't minded watching him sleep a little longer. Stepping out, Theodulf's eyes widened as he took in the harsh, empty landscape stretching before him. Bare trees, cracked earth, and howling wind confirmed it. This was the land of death. Layla noted they'd have to sleep outside that night, reassuring him not to worry despite the harsh conditions surrounding them. Standing amid the barren clearing, she pointed out the obvious: there truly was no one else here, and huddling together might be their only defense against the cold. Theodulf decided they needed to secure proper shelter instead, prompting Layla to mutter to herself about the opportunities living alone with him might bring. Remembering the goddess's earlier promise, he recalled requesting a crafting power modeled after his favorite game, deciding it was finally time to test it out. He asked Layla to chop down some nearby trees while he prepared. Without hesitation, she drew her weapon and got to work. In only a few swift strikes, the former S-rank adventurer felled tree after tree with ease, impressing Theodulf as she asked what he planned to build with the lumber. With logs piled high, he moved on to gathering stones, though Layla insisted on handling the heavy lifting herself, effortlessly stacking rocks into place. She offered to demonstrate her strength further, easily hauling boulders while he watched from a distance. Materials in hand, Theodulf recalled the goddess's words. Though he had never crafted anything as large as a house before, the goddess's voice echoed in memory, describing the gift as a divine tool capable of comprehending, controlling. Focusing on the stacked logs and stone, Theodulf activated the power for the first time in this world, shouting its name aloud: Auto, craft. In an instant, a full 2-story house rose from the pile of raw materials, complete and finished before their eyes. Layla stood frozen in shock while Theodulf cheered, thrilled that his gift had actually worked exactly as he'd hoped. Layla stepped inside first, delighted to find a fully functioning kitchen, remarking that the house looked nothing like it had been built from mere wood and stone. Testing the power further, Theodulf tried summoning a bed frame, only to realize the ability required raw materials, unable to conjure furniture from nothing. He wondered if his own clothes could substitute as material, but before he could test that idea, a proper bed frame appeared instead. With the frame complete, Theodulf activated the power once more. Thrilled that they'd finally have a warm bed to sleep in that night, Layla insisted they share a single bed, reasoning she needed to stay close enough to protect him, and that combining warmth and body heat made separate rooms pointless. Overwhelmed by her rapid-fire logic, Theodulf gave in, admitting defeat as she embraced the decision without further argument. That night, Theodulf turned to speak with her under the quiet glow of the house's rooftop against the dark sky. Lying close together, Layla insisted he was imagining things when he pointed out how close she'd gotten, though the tension between them was obvious. Both flustered, they argued weakly over the same claim, neither willing to admit just how near they truly were to one another. Sighing and blushing, Theodulf eventually gave up resisting, muttering that she could do as she wished as their first day in the land of death came to a close. Reflecting quietly, Theodulf credited his survival so far entirely to Layla and the crafting gift, believing that as long as she stayed by his side. Sudden loud thuds outside jolted them both awake in the middle of the night. Prompting them to rush out of bed to investigate, Layla urged him to stay behind, insisting she'd go check what was happening since it wasn't safe outside. But Theodulf refused to let her go alone. Stepping out into the dark, Theodulf spotted a massive shadow lurking nearby, its heavy footsteps shaking the ground. The creature revealed itself as a horned, monstrous bull-like beast, a minotaur, charging forward as panic set in over what to do next. Layla shielded him instantly, positioning herself between Theodulf and the charging monster to keep him safe from the attack. Facing the beast head on, Layla demanded to know if it had come from deep within the land of death, furious that it dared interrupt what she called her honeymoon with Prince Theo. Worried, Theodulf tried to stop her from fighting alone, insisting the creature was too dangerous. But Layla remained calm, confident she could handle the threat herself. More monstrous shapes emerged from the darkness, winged beasts and horned creatures surrounding her. Determined, Theodulf stepped forward himself, declaring he would handle the threat while asking her to fall back. Focusing hard, Theodulf pushed the limits of imagination, realizing the power could shape anything as long as it already existed somewhere and his creativity held out. With a burst of energy, he called out the power's upgraded form, remaking his creation into something far larger and sharper. A giant axe, the weapon slammed down toward the charging beast, though he reminded himself this gift wasn't built for direct combat. Unlike the offensive power his brother Niels wielded, still, that didn't mean he couldn't use it as a weapon in his own way. Swinging the massive blade down with full force, the axe crashed onto the monster with a heavy impact, flattening it instantly beneath the strike. The beast lay defeated in the snow. Clenching his fist, Theodulf admitted the fight had gone better than he expected. Layla rushed to his side in amazement, while his thoughts drifted back to the moment of his exile when he'd had no idea what he was supposed to do next. Overjoyed, Layla threw her arms around him, praising him as amazing and incredible for standing his ground and winning. Reflecting on the battle, Theodulf compared it to the very game he'd played back in his old world, realizing his gift let him craft anything as long as he had the materials. Layla asked if there was something specific he wanted to do with this newfound power, pulling her close. Theodulf admitted he'd found exactly what he wanted to pursue. Standing amid the barren wasteland, Theodulf declared his goal aloud: to reclaim the entire land of death. In the northern frontier of the Fornia kingdom lies a barren stretch known as the Land of Death, where nothing grows and the ground stretches empty beneath distant mountains. Theodulf and his maid Layla wake up to their first morning in this new home, having secured a house the day before. Layla lays out a simple breakfast, a warm soup, fresh bread, and a small salad made from what little they carried with them. Theodulf praises the meal, surprised she managed something this good, using only castle rations. Layla insists it is nothing special, but he digs in eagerly anyway. Layla notices Theodulf isn't eating enough and offers to feed him herself, even suggesting she'll give up her own portion if he runs short. After breakfast, Theodulf declares their first project, building a farm. Layla points out their rations won't last forever, and a steady food source could let them grow the settlement's population. Standing on cracked, lifeless earth, Theodulf and Layla quickly realize the soil is unfit for planting, a grim reminder of exactly where they are. Layla explains that the kingdom had tried reclaiming this land before and failed. A past disaster left the soil poisoned by noxious air, but Theodulf insists they'll do everything they can regardless. Theodulf activates his hidden power, auto, craft, and instantly forms 2 stone hoes out of thin air. Admiring the tools in his hands, Theodulf calls his gift incredibly convenient for the work ahead. The two throw themselves into tilling, swinging their hoes again and again until they've worked as much ground as they can manage. Layla spreads lime and manure across the freshly turned soil, fertilizing it in hopes it will finally be able to support crops. Exhausted, Theodulf collapses onto the table, admitting he never expected farming to be this physically draining. More problems surface, securing clean water, warding off monsters, and stretching their limited contaminated water supply until a real source can be found. Theodulf sighs, admitting he expected challenges, but not this many piling up at once. Night falls over the ruined fields back in their room. Theodulf suggests separate beds, but Layla says she still wants to help fix these problems together. Before he can finish the conversation, Layla has already fallen asleep beside him, watching her sleep. Theodulf realizes she woke up earlier, cooked, and worked harder than he did all day, exhaustion catching up to her fast. Theodulf quietly admits to himself that he might actually be the useless one here, gently taking her hand as she sleeps. Determined, he resolves that starting tomorrow he needs to work harder too. Determined to match Layla's effort, Theodulf vows to work twice as hard tomorrow before finally settling into sleep. His consciousness drifts into a strange space where a winged goddess greets him, at first calling him by his old name, Shima, before catching herself and correcting it to Theodulf. The goddess smiles warmly and greets him, cheerful despite the odd circumstances of the meeting. Confused, Theodulf asks if being summoned here means he has died again. The goddess quickly reassures him that he is perfectly fine and that she has only pulled his consciousness into this space to talk. She explains the truth behind his missing blessing, She wasn't able to give him a gift when he turned 13 because he already possessed autocraft, an ability so powerful that granting anything else would be redundant. She apologizes, admitting the mess of his exile is entirely her fault. She adds that granting a person more than one gift would be fatal, causing the body to violently reject the excess power. He thanks her sincerely, calling autocraft an exciting gift rather than a curse. Touched, the goddess tears up and insists on giving him something as an apology gift, rummaging around before presenting it to him. She hands over a gleaming metal bar, and Theodulf asks what exactly it is. The gathered gods reveal it as god metal, a rare material infused with divine power. The goddess whispers that mortals normally aren't allowed such a valuable item, but she is making an exception, along with slipping in a little bonus on top. She leans in and plants a kiss on his forehead, calling him her favorite among mortals. She wishes him luck and promises to always be rooting for him, while Theodulf, flustered, thanks her for the goddess's blessing. He suddenly jolts awake in his bed, calling out for the goddess, only to find himself alone in the quiet room. Sitting up, he wonders if the entire encounter was just a dream. Layla notices something unusual and mentions she felt a hard object earlier, causing Theodulf to panic and ask what she is doing. He quickly clarifies it is just a natural bodily reaction and insists he is not harboring any inappropriate feelings toward her. Layla, unfazed, holds up an unfamiliar shining object and asks what it is. Theodulf realizes with shock that the dream was real, the god metal now sitting physically in his hands as proof of the goddess's visit. Before he can fully process it, he turns his attention back to the soil problem, though Layla gently reminds him he is only just woken up. Theodulf and Layla walk toward the tilled field, ready to check on their progress from the day before. To their horror, the field has reverted completely, the soil cracked and barren as if none of their tilling ever happened. Refusing to give up, Theodulf suggests switching fertilizers and testing different methods, while Layla insists they till it again immediately. Layla clenches her fists, silently promising herself she needs to work harder too, still bothered by feeling useless the day before. Theodulf tells her to rest since she worked hard yesterday, but Layla brushes him off, insisting manual labor is what she is built for. She reminds him her sword training wasn't just for show, then kneels down to examine a handful of soil, wishing she understood its properties better. Theodulf agrees mindless tilling won't solve anything and suggests they focus on finding the right fertilizer first. As he holds the soil, a strange panel pops into view labeling it soil from the land of death. Ranked E with the worst quality, contaminated by noxious air, and only purifiable through divine blessing. Confused, he realizes Layla can't see the panel at all, and she asks what is wrong when he reacts to something invisible to her. Theodulf tries to touch the floating text but finds he can't interact with it physically, only read the information it displays. Piecing it together, he realizes the soil can only be purified with a divine blessing, then remembers the gift the goddess gave him and thanks her for the timing. He digs through his things, wondering if it is the very item she mentioned, while Layla watches on, puzzled by his mutterings about a divine blessing. He pulls out the bar and a panel appears confirming it as god metal, ranked X with divine quality, a special material from the gods that grants tools made from it, a divine blessing. The description reinforces exactly what he needs, tools forged from this metal carrying the god's own blessing. Realizing the goddess must have planned for this, giving him both the analysis ability and the metal itself, Theodulf activates autocraft. With newfound purpose, he tears down his old wooden hoe and fuses the pieces with the god metal, triggering auto-craft once again. From the light emerges a radiant new tool, the divine hoe. Excited, he swings it down in front of Layla, who watches curiously, unsure what he is about to demonstrate. At first, nothing seems to happen, the ground looking exactly the same as before. But the analysis panel reveals otherwise. The soil has become divine soil ranked X, blessed by the goddess and capable of producing excellent crops for anyone living on it. Overjoyed, Theodulf calls out to Layla to share the news, confirming that the hoe can purify the soil and that they'll finally be able to grow crops on their land. Layla rushes forward, calling out proudly that this is her prince, catching Theodulf as he stumbles. She pulls him into a tight hug before he can even process what is happening, leaving him stunned and flustered in her arms. Overwhelmed with relief, Theodulf thanks her, grateful he was finally able to accomplish something meaningful for their new home. Overheating from exhaustion and emotion, he steams and stammers her name before nearly collapsing. Layla, worried, offers to carry him to bed as a notification confirms their success. The fields have officially been obtained. Vesta, soaked in the bath, secretly watching Theodulf's advancement across a floating orb, different angels stepped into, praising Theodulf's remarkable crafting. Even god metal was repurposed into a farming tool. Their discussion turned tense as accusations flew over choosing only cute girls as heroes. Regardless of the argument, they agreed Theodulf's connection to the hero warranted more attention. Vesta, flustered but determined, vowed not to miss different moment of Theodulf's achievements. As reading late into the night, Theodulf obtained heartfelt encouragement from the girl watching over him. At dawn, he stayed beside Layla and reached towards a pile of stones, preparing a spell. He remembered former records about underground safety and triggered his ability, confidence shining in his gaze. Auto craft triggered an eruption of clean underground water bursting from a newly shaped well. With mugs raised high, Theodulf and Layla celebrated their triumph and toasted to advancement together. Water had been secured, and Theodulf readied himself to start the following step in cultivation. Following hours of non-stop tilling, exhaustion overtook him, forcing a rest as Layla provided assistance. Regardless of collapsing earlier, she picked up the hoe, determined to continue the labor herself. Seeing her resolve, Theodulf obeyed her order and agreed to take a proper break. He recalled her that overwork once concluded his previous life, making his warning personal and serious, faced with endless fieldwork. Theodulf wished for a tractor but lacked the required resources. A tone suggested traditional methods: recruit aid or use livestock to ease the burden of tilling. Theodulf pointed out the isolation of the territory, making livestock acquisition almost impossible. Layla jokingly proposed creating workers across autocraft, hinting at human transmutation. Startled by the notion, Theodulf panicked, unsure if Layla's words remained serious or genuinely a joke. Following pondering Layla's joke, Theodulf abruptly had a breakthrough and appreciated her with enthusiasm. He clarified his intent, promising not to create living beings, only to craft missing components. The notion of a versatile helper excited him, as he remembered stories of such wonders to build it. He calculated the essential materials required: earth, stone, and something mighty. Realization struck he would need magicite, a magical force stone harvested from defeated creatures. Layla sensed ashamed for failing her master, then misinterpreted his needs in a flustered moment. Ignoring the misunderstanding, Theodulf triggered autocraft with the gathered materials and focused force. From the light, a towering golem shaped a creation born from stone, earth, and magicite. Layla applauded his triumph as the golem responded to Theodulf's command and ready to assist. Confusion struck when the golem abruptly dashed straight towards him without explanation. The golem abruptly scooped up Theodulf, lifting him with surprising speed and power. Though confused, he sensed no danger as Layla hurried in, ready to defend him. Seeing the golem spin joyfully with him, Layla acknowledged her jealousy of its affection. As she observed its behavior, Theodulf questioned whether he'd accidentally given it real emotions. With the golem standing by, Theodulf assigned it to till the territory, declaring the project a triumph. With a cheerful command, Theodulf set the golem to labor, its expression glowing with delight. The beast surged forward, expertly tilling the dry realm as Theodulf observed in amazement. By afternoon, the party had planted seeds and watered the soil, completing the duty rapidly. Over a feast, they discussed the coming, optimistic that their provision supply was now secured. Nevertheless, by the following morning brought unexpected shock as Theodulf gazed at something unbelievable. The party stayed in awe, amazed by the unexpected sight of enormous crops after one day. Regardless of the surprise, Theodulf shouted to Layla and the golem, ready to move forward. Cheering in unison, they celebrated the completely resolved provisions shortage with a basket of fresh produce. From over, they observed the farmlands, amazed everything possessed matured to full growth overnight. Thanks to the fertile soil, even out of season vegetables possessed sprouted in abundance. Vegetables ripened overnight thanks to the fertile soil Theodulf cultivated across his unique crafting ability. With caution, he examined a tomato. Layla hurried a quick analysis. Everything checked out as secure. The instant he took a bite, an overwhelming wave of flavor surged across his entire form. Juice burst throughout his tongue. He questioned whether such rich taste could even belong to a vegetable. Astounded by the taste, Theodulf enthusiastically provided one to Layla, urging her to try it herself. Following tasting the raw tomato, Layla grew overwhelmed by its richness and proposed cooking it following. Without delay, she readied the dishes with focus, determined to honor Theodulf's initial harvest properly. Multiple vegetable-based meals were completed, each dish looking vibrant and well, readied with exceptional presentation and care. They settled down to eat together. Layla took the initial bite, as Theodulf observed in anticipation. Flavors amazed them both. Overjoyed, they floated in satisfaction, overwhelmed by the incredible taste of vegetables. Theodulf savored the tempura's crunch and rich umami, impressed by the harmony of flavors. Layla couldn't believe how juicy the cabbage rolls remained or how well corn paired with chickpeas. Speechless, they settled in blissful silence, overwhelmed by the craftsmanship behind each perfectly cooked vegetable dish. Unsatisfied, they came back beyond. With harvest complete, Theodulf recalled Gorm about gathering the essential supplies. Gorm responded instantly, delivering an enormous pile of wood and stone, exceeding everyone's expectations effortlessly. Layla, still confused, ultimately questioned Theodulf what exactly the enigmatic Gorm was supposed to be. He clarified it seemed the golem's name, which surprisingly responded positively when he initially called it that. As she questioned his intentions, he disclosed strategies not for a fresh home, but something different. With auto-craft triggered, an entire outdoor hot spring facility emerged prior to their gaze, completely constructed. Layla admired the bath's elegance. Theodulf beamed, satisfied with the nostalgic yet practical masterpiece he possessed shaped. Theodulf handed Layla handmade bathing items, soap from bubble leaves and a sponge from gourd fiber. As he stepped into the men's section, Layla hesitated briefly, then followed with quiet determination. Theodulf started washing, unaware that Layla possessed already joined, ready to assist with the bathing process. Startled, he turned. She silently insisted there emerged no need to divide the bath by gender. Layla steadfastly announced it her maid's duty to aid, insisting he couldn't manage it alone. She rejected to back down, insisting even orders couldn't override her personal sense of duty. Regardless of Theo's protests, she claimed physical closeness was essential for a maid and her master. Following settling into the bath, Theo sank in silence, amazed by how thoroughly she'd washed him. Layla softly directed him to look upward, sensing the instant carried more than just warmth. As his gaze raised, stars twinkled over unexpected beauty in a realm once deemed lifeless and toxic. Steam softly stood as Theodulf and Layla admired the stars from their newly crafted hot spring. A quiet moment passed as they reflected on the beauty never seen in their previous lives. He wished she would stay. Without pausing, she vowed to remain by his side. In the distance, an enigmatic woman sensed the steam and grew curious about the human's arrival. Theodulf begins each morning with blade training alongside Layla, never skipping his disciplined routine. Tending farmlands and harvesting crops fill his daylight hours. Nights are spent planning his coming. Regardless of a peaceful life, Theodulf lies awake, frustrated by the absence of fresh inhabitants, though the territory grants no residence. He hopes fate might one day send someone. Abruptly, a sound from the farmlands interrupts his thoughts, hinting at unexpected change approaching. Under the moonlit sky, a towering white wolf abruptly appears prior to Theodulf, radiating an intense presence, locking gaze with the beast. Theodulf freezes. Curiosity stirs under his initial dread and confusion. A peculiar aura surrounds the beast. Something about it reminds him of the goddess's divine power. The wolf speaks plainly, calming Theodulf's nerves. He's amazed to hear it communicate like a human. Introducing herself as Luna, the majestic Fenrir declares her identity as a divine wolf of legend. Recognition dawns. Theodulf realizes the beast remains a Fenrir, a divine beast of legendary might. Luna reassures him once again. Her intent remains not hostile, but peaceful and purposeful. A flash of light surrounds the giant wolf as she begins to shift her form. Transformed into a graceful humanoid figure, Luna's divine presence stuns both Theodulf and Layla. Now in human form, Luna politely apologizes and reveals she arrived with the appeal to make. Luna humbly asks to share some vegetables drawn by their delicious scent from afar. Generously, Theodulf offers the harvest. She gratefully accepts and takes a curious bite. Amazed by the flavor, Luna praises the vegetables as the best in 1,000 years. She recalls the distant former when clean air and healthy crops once filled this realm. War brought devastation, transforming the fertile realm into a toxic, lifeless wasteland over centuries. Theodulf questions Luna about her long life and the real cause behind the territory's corruption. She confirms it wasn't natural, then silently continues eating as he wonders why she never departed. Luna considers the wasteland her home, unwilling to abandon it regardless of its ruined condition. Gratitude fills her tone as she praises Theodulf for reviving the territory's former richness. When questioned for his name, he introduces himself formally, Theodulf Foren. Theodulf tries to downplay his actions, but Luna insists on properly expressing her gratitude. Steadfastly, she explains that repaying kindness remains a sacred duty among Fenrir. Without warning, Luna leans forward and plants a kiss on his forehead, calling it a Fenrir's blessing. She smiles, admitting it's everyone she can offer for now. Prior to departing, she expresses delight and bids a warm farewell to the amazed Theodulf. Luna silently turns to leave, confirming she holds indeed lived in the realm of death for centuries. Abruptly, Theodulf rushes forward, calling out for her to stop. With resolve, he asks if she would become a citizen of his domain. Their gaze meet. Luna startled. Theodulf plainly serious about his appeal. Flustered by the phrasing, Luna teases him, misinterpreting his offer with playful mischief. Luna rubs his head, grinning. Clarifying she was only joking earlier, she asks for time to consider the appeal, explaining she holds her personal obligations. Prior to departing, she promises to bring an even better blessing the following time they meet. Transformed once again, she bids farewell as Theodulf blushes at the idea of her return. As a fresh day begins, Theodulf returns to his quiet life, hiding the encounter from Layla. As harvesting fruit, Theodulf senses something remarkable close. A sudden noise draws his attention. A wounded girl collapses in the woodland, begging for aid as her power fades. A girl stumbled weakly across the woodland, hardly able to call for aid prior to collapsing. Theodulf hurried to her side without pausing and rapidly called Layla for medical supplies. She was carried into a sturdy wooden home where a mechanical helper stayed silently beyond. Within, the girl slowly awoke, confused by the unfamiliar chamber and unfamiliar faces throughout her. Theo silently introduced himself and Layla, explaining how they found her unconscious beside the entrance. Grateful for their aid, the girl introduced herself as Aisha and appreciated them sincerely. A sudden realization struck her. Without warning, she jumped up in a panic to leave. Regardless of Theo's warning, Aisha ignored her pain. Layla emerged, sent to fetch healing herbs. Nutritious leaves remained rapidly gathered, plants known to restore wounds when properly treated. With practiced motion, Theo triggered autocraft, harnessing his ability to convert herbs into medicine. Aisha gazed at the glowing potion in awe, unsure how it abruptly emerged so fast. Without protest, she drank it down. A warm glow surged across her form instantly. Every own pain vanished. She stayed up again, amazed, promising to repay Theo's kindness someday. Curious, she questioned if the home was beside Fornos. A map disclosed their real location. Realization struck hard. She possessed gone the wrong way, straight into the perilous realm of death. Tears welled in Aisha's gaze as she disclosed the awful truth. Goblins were raiding her settlement. Both Theo and Layla remained amazed. Regardless of being small, goblins were cunning and acted in swarms. She clarified her home, Moa settlement, lay within Vitoa territory, now overrun following days of assaults. Their demands grew: daily provisions taken by force, threats crafted when villagers resisted or begged for mercy. Matters worsened. The goblins desired women following, the residents rejected and were met with lethal threats. Chased by goblins, Aisha escaped alone, risking everything to search for someone who could aid. Theo questioned why she hadn't sought aid from the Lord of Vitoa, the nearest authority she possessed, but he cruelly dismissed her, saying he lacked any time for small villages. Known for heavy taxes and indifference, the tyrant possessed ignored even former suffering in his realm. As Aisha readied himself to leave again, Theo silently spoke, stopping her prior to she could step beyond. Aisha glanced throughout curiously, confused by where Theo was leading her. Within the building, stacks of supplies filled the chamber. It seemed an enormous, completely stocked storehouse. Theo disclosed his scheme. He had readied materials in advance, just in case of emergencies. By invoking Autocraft's hidden sub-ability, he triggered a power resembling inventory systems in video games. Confidently, Theo clenched his fist as the swirling vortex absorbed crates of resources. Aisha observed in disbelief as the entire storehouse emptied in an instant of force. Theo clarified the supplies remained safely stored in different dimension using his newly awakened sub-ability. Without pausing, Theo and Layla chose to travel with Aisha to rescue the settlement. Racing across the woodland, Theodulf leads Layla and Aisha on a speeding stone beast. Regardless of Aisha's concern, he pushes forward, determined to reach the settlement and protect it from danger. Standing firm, he stares into the trees forward. Goblins await, yet dread does not take hold. Recalling Luna's blessing, he prepares to activate Fenrir's blessing, relying on his analysis ability to assist. Theodulf, Prince of Fornia, bears divine crafting power and blessings that make him dread no threat. With Luna's blessing in mind, Theodulf acknowledges his power and silently expresses his gratitude. As they speed forward, Aisha points in alarm. Her settlement holds come into view forward. Shock overtakes Theodulf as he sees a swarm of figures rushing towards frightened villagers. Dozens of goblins overrun the settlement square, terrifying the residents with their violent presence. Realization hits hard: they're attacking Aisha's home. Theodulf prepares himself, determined to confront the invading opponent forces. With no hesitation, Theodulf commands Gorm to charge straight at the advancing goblin horde. He rapidly coordinates a mid-charge scheme, preparing the others to leap from Gorm at the right moment. On his count, the trio jumps below them. Gorm crashes into the goblins without slowing down. Reacting fast, Theodulf activates Autocraft, generating an enormous cushion to break their fall safely. Landing together, they collapse into a pile, tangled and breathless, but unharmed from the risky maneuver. Following landing in a pile, everyone three begin to blush awkwardly. Their faces burning in surprise, Aisha panics and apologizes, but Theodulf rapidly tries to take the blame instead. Encircled by goblins, he steps forward, insisting Aisha stay behind as he handles the threat alone. Declaring his intent, Theodulf promises to protect the residents, filling Aisha with nervous admiration. Goblins charge without pausing. Aisha, spirit pounding, realizes her feelings are starting to shift. Charging forward, Theodulf calls Layla to join him as they expression the goblin horde head on. Both unleash their powers, Layla with her blade technique, and Theodulf with a full autocraft invocation. A storm of swords rains from over as Layla strikes across opponents with blinding silver arcs. Explosions erupt as their combined assaults tear across the combat zone, forcing goblins into chaos. Terrified by the overwhelming force, the remaining goblins retreat, shouting to warn their leader. With the goblins gone, Theo orders Layla to focus on protecting the residents instead of pursuing. A close woman timidly asks his name, unsure who possessed just rescued them from destruction. Following brief hesitation, he introduces himself completely as Theodulf Foran, Prince and Lord of the Realm of Death. Gasps spread across the crowd. Aisha stares in shock, realizing Theo remains actually royalty. Regardless of worries about bias, Theo finds reassurance as the residents gratefully accept his identity and intentions. Theo remains cautious, knowing the goblins mention reporting to their boss. Deep within the woodland, a cave entrance hints at the foe's hidden base. Frightened goblins retreat, warning others of the settlement's overwhelming power. Their leader, the Goblin King, silences them and vows revenge with a counterattack. The settlement chief shifted forward to greet Theodulf, expressing deep gratitude for saving everyone. Regardless of Theodulf's humble refusal, the residents insisted on showing appreciation with a small but meaningful blessing. A shimmering object caught everyone's attention, and curiosity sparked when its value grew apparent. It emerged orichalcum, an extremely uncommon metal worth hundreds of gold coins per piece. Tension stood as a villager protested, enraged that their precious heirloom seemed given so freely. Suspicion filled Jack's tone as he questioned the motives behind Theodulf's selfless actions. He turned to the crowd, urging others to uncertainty the prince just as he did. A girl shifted forward, defending Theodulf's honor and recalling how he possessed assisted strangers selflessly. Some villagers hesitated, torn between gratitude and loyalty to their ancestral treasure. Resigned, the chief disclosed the settlement's grim coming, hinting at despair beyond the present blessing. A retreating goblin's words hinted at something perilous hidden within the depths of the woodland. It grew clear: the Goblin King. The strongest among them seemed hiding close. The residents listened anxiously as they learned the king surpassed normal goblins in intellect and might. Rumors claimed he could defeat even mighty creatures like minotaurs or Kijin effortlessly. Warnings were issued. The residents were encouraged to escape prior to the Goblin King came back. Elders insisted on staying behind, unwilling to burden the younger villagers during the evacuation. Refusing to accept that sacrifice, Jack announced his intent to conflict the goblins directly. Theodulf shifted forward with firm resolve, vowing to save everyone without leaving a single person behind. Regardless of the danger, he chose to stay. Realizing the goblins had surrounded the entire settlement, a fresh scheme emerged: they wouldn't flee. Instead, they would fortify the settlement together. Memories of his father's words fueled Jack's resolve, but uncertainty still clouded his judgment. Fury surged. He rejected aid from Theodulf, convinced royalty only acted out of self-interest. Abruptly, a towering watchtower emerged across autocraft, stunning the crowd with its sheer scale. Regardless of Jack's lingering mistrust, Theodulf persisted, crafting, driven by the residents' faith and cooperation. Fortifications stood following, forming sharp defensive barriers. The settlement's initial real optimism versus invasion. Exhaustion struck Theodulf mid-duty, yet he persisted, crafting without pause, regardless of the strain. Layla encouraged him to rest, worried by the toll his overused power seemed taking. Ignoring his limits, Theodulf reaffirmed his vow he would protect the settlement regardless of the cost. Meanwhile, Jack froze at the sight of the incoming swarm, overwhelmed by dread and regret. Realization dawned: Theodulf possessed never hesitated, risking everything as others doubted or stayed still. Determined at final, Jack shifted forward and questioned what he had to do. Theodulf acknowledged Jack's power, recognizing him as the settlement's greatest capable fighter. He seemed tasked with the critical role of defending the residents if the fortifications failed. Grabbing the armament, Jack welcomed not out of trust but out of duty. A hesitant thank you followed, as Aisha silently observed the shift in his spirit. Aisha's gaze emerged caught, prompting flustered denial when Theodulf confronted her directly. She reported the secure evacuation of children and elders. Eager to stay useful, everyone throughout, villagers worked hard under Theodulf's direction, preparing for the coming conflict. Amid the activity, Aisha observed in silent admiration. Her spirit shifted by his resolve, from the woodland's edge, the Goblin King surged forward, leading his horde into war. A monstrous leader marches with his army, irritated by his cowardly subordinates fleeing a small settlement. He plots cruel revenge, planning to slaughter the men and seize everything departed behind. Within the settlement, Theodulf's forces silently prepare, readying bows and spears without pausing. Unexpected fortifications stun the invaders' trenches, barricades, and towers overwhelm their expectations entirely. Facing overwhelming protection, Theodulf demands the assaulters retreat prior to further bloodshed begins. Guards raise their arms as a warning, hoping to avoid unnecessary bloodshed across restraint. Rather than retreat, the foe leader snarls proudly, refusing to back down or yield. With an enraged roar, the goblin horde charges wildly under the Beast King's command. Regardless of the threat, villagers stand firm as the goblins rush in. Brimming with vile intent, abruptly, the ground erupts. Something hidden strikes initial, halting their advance in one devastating blow. With the signal given, drums thunder as villagers rally, preparations complete. The protection begins in full. Rushing forward blindly, goblins slam into the wall, their advance slowed by the sturdy structure. One attempts to climb, confident in his scheme. Unaware of the trained troops lying in wait, spears strike without pausing, repelling the invaders prior to they can breach the settlement fortifications. From over, Theodulf encourages the team, determined to push back the foe entirely. Enraged by the settlement's resistance, the Beast King prepares a crushing counterattack using brute power. His mighty strike shatters the ground, forcing Theodulf's team to retreat and regroup instantly. Spotting the leader, the foe aims to end the conflict by eliminating the brain behind resistance. Layla steps forward defiantly, blocking his path without pausing, unshaken by the king's twisted offer. She steadfastly rejects him, declaring loyalty to different, prompting orders for her capture instantly. With fierce resolve, Layla draws her blade using a swift Orstein technique. Challenging his threat, a mighty arc of force explodes outward, scattering goblins like leaves in a storm. Regardless of her strike, opponents overwhelm her position, grappling her from everyone's sides to force her down. Unyielding, she rises once further, determined to protect Theodulf no matter the odds. Encircled by countless opponents, she acknowledges their overwhelming numbers yet remains focused and alert. Theodulf realizes the Goblin King employed cunning tactics to isolate him from Layla and others. Guards urge retreat towards Gorm, where fortifications are stronger and the prince would be guarded. He refuses, knowing the residents will be departed vulnerable without his immediate intervention. Determined, Theodulf draws his blade, declaring his intent to defeat the foe here and now. Calling forth his auto-crafting ability, he drops an enormous stone block over the Goblin King. The stone block crashes down hard, grazing the Goblin King but failing to finish him. Without pause, Theodulf summons a ballista using autocraft, launching an enormous bolt towards the target. Unimpressed, the Goblin King shrugs off the assault, gripping his armament and preparing his counterstrike. Dark force surges as he charges, delivering a lethal threat with unwavering bloodlust. Recognizing the move, Theodulf braces himself, knowing the destructive slash remains about to begin. The Goblin King unleashes his lethal slash, carving the territory with tremendous force and fury. Regardless of the devastating strike, confusion spreads as he realizes his target has mysteriously vanished. Over him, Theodulf descends rapidly, aiming his final strike straight at the exposed crown. Theodulf gripped his ground as the beast warrior lunged. Sparks flared. He triggered autocraft mid-air. Columns of earth burst upward, lifting him high over the incoming blow. Timing emerged critical. As his foe reeled below, he twisted mid-air, positioning himself perfectly to strike from over, blade raised. He launched downward, channeling each lesson learned from Layla's brutal training sessions. With a single arc, he unleashed the silver strike. The foe couldn't block in time. Theodulf's blade struck, but the beast's hardened skin repelled the assault without a scratch. With a brutal counter, the foe hurled him into a wall, pain surging across his form. He tumbled throughout the ground, wounded. The foe mocked him, unfazed and ready to finish it. Struggling to rise, Theodulf clenched his fist. He possessed to stand. He couldn't give up now, just as defeat neared. Jack reached his spear, pierced the foe's fortifications, stunning them both. Jack confronted the Goblin King, revealing he'd come following learning the circumstances from the front line. Regardless of Layla handling the goblins, Theodulf still struggled alone. His life almost concluded prior to Jack's arrival. The Goblin King dismissed Jack's efforts, calling him frail. Theodulf readied himself to intervene once again. With a wicked grin, the foe mocked human kindness, gaze gleaming with cruel amusement. Realizing the king possessed baited him, Theodulf panicked. His previous tactic wouldn't save him again. Enigmatic fox spirit emerged, and granted Theodulf her power with a light, empowering touch. With Fenrir's blessing, his legs surged with power, igniting with burning force under each step. Instead of rising, Theodulf dashed low, surprising the Goblin King with a sharp downward assault, facing mockery about his blade's dullness. He disclosed the treasure, an ancient legendary metal from home. Across Autocraft, he forged it into a brilliant orichalcum blade, ready to turn the tide. The orichalcum wasn't just metal, it emerged the settlement's guardian, believed to awaken in crisis. With blade drawn, Theodulf unleashed the silver strike, clashing head-on with the Goblin King's technique. A clean struck landed. The monstrous foe staggered, blood spraying prior to he fell in defeat. Wounded and drained, Theodulf stayed trembling. He couldn't believe it. He'd actually won the clash. Jack caught him prior to he fell. Praise emerged, exchanged, reassurance softening their war-hardened expressions. Wearing a smile, Theodulf and Jack sealed their hard-fought victory with a quiet fist bump. He and Layla opened the shelter doors, calling the hidden villagers out to safety. Cheers erupted as the townspeople surged forward. In succession, they embraced their rescuers. Layla flinched at the sudden hug but rapidly recognized it was from someone overwhelmed in reassurance. Tears poured down the girl's cheeks as she repeated heartfelt thanks, tone trembling with emotion. Villagers gathered throughout, some crying, others smiling. Peace came back and safety ultimately embraced their hearts. A toast emerged raised in honor of their victory with special praise given to Prince Theodulf. Laughter and cheer erupted throughout the tavern. Mug following mug clashed in celebration, their delight echoing throughout the lively hall. Reassurance spread across the area as survivors mingled freely. Following hardship and danger, seeing familiar faces secure brought peace to numerous. Taken by surprise, Theodulf found himself in an awkward position commended by one woman as trapped under different. Throughout the chamber, Aisha gazed longingly, her tray trembling in her hands. Watching the scene unfold, she whispered a desperate plea to trade places, hardly hiding her envy. Tension stood as multiple girls competed for Theodulf's attention, each offering their best home-cooked dish. A cooking conflict was announced without pausing. The girls took their positions, ready to defend their pride across culinary ability. Regardless of his plea for aid, the settlement chief smiled kindly, allowing the younger generation their moment. Throughout them, villagers shared laughter and good provisions. Unaware of Theodulf's growing dread under the surface, realizing the growing crowd, Theodulf stepped away from the table. With a calm breath, he conjured a step stool using his auto-craft ability. Standing prior to them, he gathered their attention. Words shaped slowly, but his resolve emerged clear. With firm resolve in his tone, Theodulf extended an invitation to everyone become inhabitants of the severe realm he governed. Questions and doubts rapidly spread across the area. Numerous feared the return of creatures and the harshness of life in the so-called realm of death. Acknowledging their concerns, Theodulf acknowledged his limitations. Though blessed with a unique power, he clarified he couldn't rebuild the territory alone. Breaking the silence, one man raised his tone in insistence. He announced his loyalty to Theodulf and raised his mug without pausing. Opposition followed rapidly. Accusations remained thrown back at the supporter, who fired back defiantly. Assistance rapidly followed Theodulf's bold invitation. In succession, companions and villagers started voicing their decision to stand by him. Even those brimming with uncertainty raised their hands, regardless of fears about the realm of death. They placed their trust in Theodulf's leadership. Cheers erupted across the crowd. Shouts of Prince Theo echoed as the residents rallied behind their fresh lord, officially pledging their allegiance. That night grew a celebration. Under the moonlit sky, everyone drank and danced, their worries set aside for a brief moment of unity. At dawn, their journey started. Supplies that couldn't fit in storage remained loaded onto a wagon drew by Gorm. Following multiple hours of travel, Theodulf led the residents to his claimed territory. Proudly, he announced it as his domain. The sight forward seemed far from striking. A single home stayed alone in a barren, lifeless landscape. Not letting hesitation grow, Theodulf turned to action. He announced the start of construction and triggered his inventory, ready to build a coming from the ground up. Using his autocraft ability, he conjured materials and structures in an instant. Wooden frames and rooftops shaped rapidly. Multiple homes emerged in moments. Even if adjustments were required later, Theodulf was readied himself to rebuild as essential, confident in his power to assist them everyone. A mighty shockwave rang across the area as Theodulf disclosed an entire street of newly constructed homes. Standing tall in the once barren realm, reactions arrived rapidly. Onlookers stayed in awe, amazed by how closely the result matched Theodulf's vision. Shortly afterward, he fell to the ground without warning. He woke in bed, confused but unharmed. Recalling his collapse, Theodulf recognized he had overworked himself as crafting the settlement. Reassurance arrived in the form of familiar faces. Aisha, now dressed as a maid, stayed by his bedside. Different girl clarified the change. She had seen promise in Aisha and invited her to labor under her. Then Layla proudly announced her enthusiasm to labor for Theodulf. Her energetic smack causing a brief stir. Rules remained rapidly enforced. Different maid recalled her of proper etiquette and titles, though envy lingered in her tone. Theodulf dismissed the formality, preferring familiarity over rigid respect. His words eased the tension and brought a smile. Curious about the residents' well-being, he questioned for a report. Instead of words, he emerged directed to the window. Beyond, life thrived, children played, adults chatted, and a sense of peace filled the fresh settlement streets. Hearing that the residents were excited about their fresh life, Theodulf sensed a deep sense of reassurance. Standing at his window, he gazed over the growing settlement and readied for the days following duty. Within the spirit of the Fornia realm, the royal capital stayed tall and proud under the sky. Within the grand throne chamber, King Gauss recognized Alice Scarlet's latest heroic achievement with firm admiration. Alice faced the court, calm and collected, dismissing praise as something any hero would earn. Behind her, her comrades struggled to maintain order. Martina clutched her stomach in silent agony as Sana encouraged Alice to avoid speaking wildly again. Alice's composure cracked for a moment as she questioned Theodulf. The king proposed a grand celebration and provided to summon his son. As they strode the corridor, the king expressed gratitude for Alice's patience with his wayward son, assuring her such burdens remained no longer essential. He dismissed Theodulf as talentless, citing his defeat to receive a divine blessing. Without remorse, the king disclosed he possessed exiled Theodulf to the forsaken realm of death. Alice's fury boiled over. Her restrained expression granted way to violent rage, forcing Sana to step in. With the king amazed into silence, Sana dragged the enraged hero from the hall. Alice's screams echoed across the chamber, her vow to kill him unwavering as they hastily crafted their exit. Beyond the throne chamber, Alice demanded to know why Sana had halted her strike. Sana, exasperated, recalled her that killing a king would doom them everyone, prompting Martina to chide Alice for her recklessness. Embarrassed by her outburst, Alice insisted Theo wasn't her coming husband. The party agreed it emerged time to leave the capital. None of them desired further dealings with the royal family, especially with Theodulf's fate now uncertain. Just as they readied himself to depart, Alice halted at the tone of someone she plainly wished to avoid. Niels Ferran, second prince of the realm, welcomed her smugly. He recalled her of his royal status. Niels attempted to stop Alice's departure by announcing he possessed a proposal, but she dismissed him without pausing. Abruptly, he blurted out his intention. He desired Alice to become his woman, leaving her amazed and silent. With Theodulf exiled and the initial prince out of the picture, Niels claimed his position as heir emerged now secure. He argued that her popularity would ease his path to the throne and vowed her a comfortable coming without endless battles. Alice gazed at him with growing irritation, then mocked his ignorance. She couldn't believe someone so foolish crafted it this far in life. Alice silently raised her hand and started listing her reasons for rejecting Niels. Starting with his lack of leadership potential, she added that her role as a hero brought pride, and she lacked any intention of marrying someone arrogant and self-centered. Her fourth point crafted her stance clear. She would assistance Theodulf, suspecting Niels played a part in his exile. Infuriated, Niels exploded in rage, shouting Theodulf's name repeatedly as his mana flared with overwhelming intensity. Shocking everyone close, he ultimately disclosed his divine blessing. Great sages for once. While Alice stayed unimpressed, silently observing his outburst, Niels proudly boasted about his mana reserves and elemental mastery, claiming his power crafted him unmatched. Alice stayed unimpressed. Without pausing, he unleashed an enormous fireball, yelling for Alice to submit to his overwhelming power. Just as the assault reached her, she closed the distance and effortlessly sliced across the spell with a clean slash. Amazed, Niels gazed at the remains of his failed sorcery. Alice silently criticized his lack of discipline and overconfidence. Closing in without pause, she delivered a sharp blow that sent him crashing backward, silencing his arrogance instantly. Following the smack, Niels shouted threats, declaring that she assaulted a prince. Alice dismissed him with a calm smile and called for Martina. Martina shifted forward, activating a healing spell that rapidly erased everyone's signs of injury from Niels's expression. Confused, Niels touched his expression and recognized the wounds seemed gone. Alice feigned innocence, teasingly asking what she possessed done wrong. Enraged, Niels accused her of deception, claiming healing wouldn't absolve her. Alice encouraged him to speak the reality if he dared. She mockingly imagined his confession, rejected, humiliated, healed, and beaten everyone due to his personal arrogance and poor judgment. Niels seethed with rage, vowing vengeance on both Alice and Theodulf. She dismissed his threats with sarcasm. Without pausing, Alice turned away and commanded her party to move. Their business in the capital possessed concluded, determined. She clenched her resolve. Reuniting with Theodulf grew her only priority. Now, morning sunlight illuminated the thriving settlement, once barren and forgotten. Now, sturdy homes lined the neatly arranged streets. Grateful villagers gathered, tools in hand and determination in their gaze. Farmlands that possessed long lain dormant would ultimately see cultivation. Tasks remained divided as daily labor started. As some repaired the water channels, others readied provisions for the workers. Aisha reached carrying a basket of sandwiches. The once named realm of death started pulsing with life. Everyone contributed, each hand building a fresh coming. Abruptly, the clang of warning bells shattered the peace. Reports of a giant wolf approaching the settlement stirred immediate concern. Tension surged as the giant wolf faced the armed villagers. Instead of aggression, it silently requested peace. The towering beast emerged Luna, a familiar presence from Theodulf's former. She addressed him confidently and warmth, revealing her long-awaited reunion. In a blink, the beast vanished, replaced by a striking woman with wolf-like features. Their conversation faced recent events. Luna commended his growth, noting the resilience he'd gained across hardship. With a teasing smile, Luna vowed a greater blessing upon their following meeting. Her words departed Theodulf thoughtful, the encounter ending as rapidly as it possessed begun. Theodulf found himself taken by surprise in the middle of a bright day. A sudden movement from the woman prior to him departed him confused, arms raised defensively as wind hurried throughout them. Without pausing, the woman closed the distance, her finger raised softly to his lips, silencing him prior to he could react further. Prior to anything more could happen, a blade sliced across the air. Different woman emerged, blade aimed precisely between them, forcing the would-be kisser back with a sharp clash. The fresh arrival scolded the intruder, accusing her of overstepping boundaries. Attempts to clarify followed. Theodulf insisted he recognized the woman as someone he'd met earlier. Luna smiled confidently as she clarified the purpose of her sudden approach. Her intention wasn't hostile. She disclosed that her previous kiss on Theodulf's forehead granted him only a fragment of her power. Giving more instantly, she claimed, would have overwhelmed his form to a fatal degree. According to her, a kiss emerged the greatest effective method to update and transfer greater blessing. Elsewhere, the maid stayed unconvinced. Her patience thinned, and she questioned whether Luna completed her so-called explanation. Theodulf encouraged Luna to clarify, and she ultimately relented, admitting she gone overboard. Tension stayed high as the maid gripped Theodulf protectively. She accused Luna of committing a grave offense, refusing to lower her blade. Luna, calm, yet curious, questioned the maid's fury. Her observation hinted at a deeper motive under the hostility. The teasing accusation of jealousy caught the maid off guard. Though she denied it, her reaction betrayed embarrassment, revealing conflicted emotions. Rather than argue, Luna proposed a solution. The maid only had to act prior to her. Startled by the suggestion, the maid learned she too possessed the power to grant blessing. Luna assured her that the power she'd shown wasn't ordinary, urging her to use it. A divine figure clarified that certain humans are occasionally blessed with power, and those individuals can pass that blessing on to others. Layla, realizing her potential, provided to share her power with Prince Theodulf. Theodulf, overwhelmed by the suggestion, struggled to understand how the circumstances escalated so rapidly. Attempting to delay, he argued they shouldn't act rashly. His concern for Layla's feelings crafted him hesitate, though embarrassment plainly played a role. With her gaze softly closed, Layla waited patiently. Her quiet appeal and calm demeanor departed Theodulf speechless, as the instant turned solemn and intimate. Excitement spread among the onlookers as they observed the scene unfold. Worried, he questioned if she was genuinely comfortable. Layla assured him she wasn't being compelled, expressing her desire for his affection. Though nervous, she gathered her courage. Her trembling hands betrayed her anxiety, as Theodulf observed, equally overwhelmed. Unable to resist any longer, Theodulf agreed to go across with it. Layla acknowledged it seemed her initial time, and so did he. As the instant reached, they faced one different. Hearts racing, slowly, Theodulf reached out, softly holding her expression, and shifted in with hesitation. Theodulf and Layla ultimately shared a kiss, sealing the divine blessing. Both of them flushed as the instant lingered. Layla softly drew back, asking if her attempt worked. Theodulf, overwhelmed, sensed his expression burning with heat. Confused by her silence, Theodulf called her name. Her stillness raised concern, and a sense of unease crept in. Prior to anyone could react, Layla fell to her knees. The others observed in disbelief, amazed by her sudden fainting. As laughter erupted, Luna commended Layla's charm, amused by the outcome. She announced herself, following to everyone's shock and Theodulf's dread. Following receiving Layla's blessing, Theodulf was advised to rest until its effects completely settled. Without warning, a group of wolf-like creatures emerged, barking excitedly as they neared. Luna introduced them as Fenrir pups, declaring they possessed come to serve under Theodulf's care moving forward. A sudden encounter with enormous beasts beyond the settlement startled Theodulf. Their presence emerged overwhelming. Luna silently introduced them as Fenrir pups, majestic and imposing. Clarifying the circumstances, Luna clarified they belonged to her elder sister, not her personal offspring, though cautious. Luna acknowledged the potential risk. These creatures weren't ordinary. Their nature could bring complications if mishandled. Regardless of her warning, Theodulf found himself silently captivated by the pups' presence. Emphasizing their usefulness, Luna highlighted their strengths: speed beyond horses, the ability to fend off creatures. Confidently, Theodulf reassured her. He witnessed not a threat but precious companions ready to aid his growing domain. With a bright smile, Theodulf announced his decision. Each one of the Fenrir pups would be welcomed into his settlement. Luna, initially startled, expressed her gratitude. She questioned the pups to show their appreciation, confident they'd be in fine hands, excited by their fresh caretaker. The pups lunged forward as a group. Their boundless force overwhelmed Theodulf as they surged at him enthusiastically. Encircled by wagging tails and friendly tongues, Theodulf attempted to stay upright. Buried under a pile of fur and wagging bodies, only his arms stayed visible. Theodulf, though flustered, attempted to speak across the fluff storm, half calling for aid, half dismissing the notion. Theodulf struggled under the mountain of affectionate Fenrir pups, regardless of his plea for calm. Watching from the porch, Aisha smiled with envy. One pup silently gazed from close, its gaze fixed on her as if wanting to join. Aisha observed the pup always stayed distant. Her thoughts lingered on its withdrawn behavior, questioning if something deeper emerged wrong. Luna softly leaned over her, explaining the pup's aloofness wasn't fresh. Its quiet nature possessed always crafted bonding difficult, becoming a consistent concern over time. A week passed. The Fenrirs now worked alongside villagers, pulling carts, guarding children, bringing delight to everyone. Luna emerged in a modest fresh outfit, drawing Theodulf's startled reaction. The choice possessed been deliberate. Luna respected his appeal, understanding it wasn't suitable to walk the settlement in something overly revealing, even if she personally preferred it later. Theodulf questioned the aloof pup. Luna disclosed it emerged the youngest, born under tragic circumstances. Though Luna had attempted to raise the pup as her personal, she recognized she could never fill the void its real mother departed behind. Withdrawn and emotionally scarred, the pup stayed isolated. Without knowing affection or warmth, it instinctively chose solitude over connection. Luna neared Theodulf with a quiet appeal. Without pausing, he welcomed whatever she possessed in mind. To his surprise, it emerged about the lonely Fenrir pup. He vowed to do his best and become the beast's initial real companion. Luna, briefly amazed, welcomed his offer kindly. She expressed sincere gratitude. Theodulf's kindness possessed exceeded her expectations, making her feel reassured about her decision to trust him. In a sudden moment, Luna shifted forward and kissed him. Theodulf stayed frozen, gaze wide in shock. Entirely flustered, he stumbled backward, demanding an explanation. Luna's bold action departed him overwhelmed as the surrounding pups flailed about in excitement. With a playful grin, Luna teased that she merely forgot to update her previous blessing, revealing her earlier kiss was part of her scheme everyone along. Patting his head, she entrusted the withdrawn pup to Theodulf, flustered by her boldness. He remembered she had mentioned something similar prior to. Not wasting time, Theodulf neared the pup's usual spot. He acknowledged his inexperience but vowed to give his best attempt. Peeking throughout the corner, he extended an open invitation to the pup, hoping to spark a connection across play. Startled, the pup dashed away without pausing. Departed behind, Theodulf glanced back and observed different pups silently observing the failed attempt. Theodulf observed the pup cautiously. It hadn't run far, suggesting it wasn't entirely fearful of him. And notion struck. He invited the pup to play tag, offering to be it to encourage engagement. A delighted bark arrived in response with force. The pup dashed forward and Theodulf enthusiastically granted chase across the settlement. Realizing the pup's incredible speed, he acknowledged its power. Determined not to fall behind, he triggered his power to match the pace. Just as the pup attempted to dodge, Theodulf triggered auto. Craft a sudden earth wall halted the escape route, halting the game with a surprise. Just when Theodulf's idea he possessed cornered the pup, it leapt nimbly onto a rooftop. Their chase persisted across alleys and over walls. At one point, the pup caught him midair and sent him flying, plainly still full of force. An hour later, Theodulf struggled to breathe. Exhaustion had caught up with him as the pup stayed entirely unfazed. Standing alone in the courtyard, he raised his gaze. The Fenrir pup still observed from over, calm and silent. Abruptly, different pup barked happily beside him, its tail wagging. The one on the roof observed silently, showing a faint sign of interest. With renewed determination, Theodulf announced the real game emerged just beginning. Confidence gleamed in his gaze. The Fenrir pup took off throughout the rooftop, but a misstep caused it to lose balance. Both of them observed the danger instantly. Reacting fast, Theodulf triggered Autocraft to summon a trampoline. Then, he boosted his power using Fenrir's blessing and dashed forward. He launched himself across the air in a desperate attempt to reach the falling pup, stretching out his hand mid-flight. Just in time, he caught the pup in his arms. A soft Autocraft cushion emerged below them, ensuring a secure landing. Theodulf and the pup landed safely on the cushion. A triumphant laugh escaped him as he gripped it close. Luna observed with amusement the pup, once distant, now emerged eager to play again. Wrapped in a cheerful hug, Theodulf announced their bond simple and honest. They had become real companions from a distance. Luna smiled kindly. Watching them interact, she recognized that trust possessed ultimately taken root. Theodulf emerged entrusted with naming a group of Fenrir pups. With Luna's appeal in mind, he granted each of them a unique name, forming a bond that brought him unexpected delight. Following naming Gorm previously, this duty crafted him feel even more accomplished. Close. Layla led a brutal training session. Her power overwhelmed the volunteer troops, sending them flying with one swift move. Riding Silk, Theodulf checked the perimeter. No creature damage possessed been reported so far. Later, a creature threatened the settlement. Yet thanks to Layla's power, Gorm's aid, and the troops' efforts, the threat seemed rapidly neutralized. As riding Silk, Theodulf observed the settlement's advancement. Inspired by everyone's efforts, he resolved to contribute further. He triggered his Autocraft ability, constructing an enormous protective wall throughout the settlement to enhance security. Later that evening, he contemplated forging a fresh armament. Unfortunately, he lacked the materials to proceed. Regardless of the setback, he found satisfaction elsewhere. The recently constructed sauna grew a favorite among the residents. Layla came back from training just as Gorm, surprisingly the most enthusiastic sauna user, enjoyed the steam. Layla, wrapped in a towel, hesitated prior to silently thanking Theodulf for his hard labor that day. From throughout the chamber, Theodulf sensed the emotional distance she maintained following their final awkward encounter. Breaking the silence, she apologized for fainting following impulsively kissing him during a previous emotional moment. He attempted to ease her embarrassment, but she sliced him off and confidently neared, steps determined. Without pausing, Layla leaned in, asking to update her blessing. Leaving Theodulf entirely amazed and speechless, Layla rapidly clarified her reasoning, insisting that updating her blessing would strengthen her assistance without hidden intent. Theodulf reflected on her sincerity, realizing she possessed been doing everything she could on his behalf, shifted by her determination. He readied himself, softly asking her to proceed with care. As she leaned closer, Layla acknowledged her intent to finish, rapidly blaming Theo for making things complicated. Without pausing, she pressed forward and kissed him again, catching him entirely off guard in the instant. Layla shoved Theodulf down in a passionate rush, overwhelming him entirely with the force of her approach. As the night progressed, she maintained kiss him endlessly, granting him a surge of blessing. The following morning, Theodulf appeared drained, having hardly slept, as Layla resumed her strict training regimen effortlessly. Trying to focus, Theodulf visited the farmlands. A villager requested vegetables, and he pondered planting an orchard following. Abruptly, a wolf-eared girl tasted the produce and shouted with delight, her praise echoing dramatically throughout the settlement. A flamboyant merchant abruptly emerged, praising the fruits grown by Theodulf and enthusiastically offering to purchase them. Without waiting, the visitor turned his attention to the white wolf close. He admired its thick fur and speculated on its value, as Theodulf stayed frozen, unsure how to handle the circumstances. Suspicion grew as Theodulf questioned the stranger's identity. At the identical moment, a wolf companion stepped in defensively, alarmed by the merchant's behavior. Introducing himself as Laurent from the Bestia Company, the man cheerfully drew a brush from nowhere. The commotion escalated when a girl reached riding a golem, accusing Laurent of trespassing. Laurent marveled at the settlement's development, amazed that crops thrived in a realm long deemed lifeless. Fascination only deepened as Laurent announced his intention to stay. He suspected the presence of a skilled alchemist and wished to uncover the settlement's secrets, especially the golem. Prior to Laurent could wander off again, Theodulf acted rapidly. A magical cage materialized throughout the intruder, blocking his escape. Cautiously, Theodulf clarified that Laurent would need to remain within until his intentions remained confirmed harmless. Surprisingly, Laurent didn't panic. Instead, he admired the cage's texture and questioned the spell's origin. As still within the cage, Laurent beamed enthusiastically. He commended the territory as a paradise, brimming with wonders like a golem, a Fenrir, unique crops, and a boy with remarkable power. Lost in his delusions of luck and divine reward, he appreciated the gods for his apparent fortune. Abruptly, loud metallic sounds echoed from the cage. Laurent panicked, assuming the noise signaled an strike. News reached that 10 Earth dragons remained approaching the settlement. Alarm spread rapidly. With a smug smile, Laurent disclosed the reality: the dragons weren't opponents. According to him, they were merely his guests, stunning everyone, including Theodulf, who recognized creatures had come with him. Tremors echoed throughout the territory as 10 Earth dragons marched steadily. Theodulf gazed in disbelief, questioning Laurent's outrageous behavior. Theodulf came back to the settlement encircled by 10 aggressive beasts in tow. His unexpected arrival sparked immediate concern, especially from a black-haired woman observing the chaotic scene. Earlier, he possessed casually neared the beast's nest out of curiosity. With no intention to provoke them, he merely peeked within. Now behind bars, Theodulf treated the ordeal like an exciting tale. Boasting proudly, he claimed to be the initial to play tag with dragons. His observer stayed skeptical. Earth dragons remain known to be calm, useful for labor and transport. Though unable to fly, Earth dragons possessed immense durability. Their intimidating presence underscored the seriousness of Theodulf's blunder. Aisha departed Theodulf locked behind bars, assuring him they would handle the dragons. At the settlement entrance, panic spread rapidly. Civilians remained hurried into underground shelters as anxious voices questioned their safety. Regardless of the dread, confidence grew among the defenders. Unlike their former home, this settlement possessed trained troops and structured fortifications. Looking towards the horizon, Aisha gripped his ground. She believed Theo and the others could express in any danger. Her trust in their combined power stayed unshaken. Troops loaded cannons along the outer wall. Each pair of hands shifted rapidly, preparing the arms that would protect their home from the oncoming beasts. Observers stationed at the wall spotted the incoming Earth dragons, confident and smiling. A fox-eared warrior provided assistance, though her aid seemed welcomed. The commander directed both warriors to wait. Timing emerged crucial. Aisha assessed the risk cautiously. Uncertainty over the dragon's enhanced power due to noxious air crafted direct combat a gamble. Instead of relying on elites, they chose to test the foe with cannon fire initial. Morale would rise if troops witnessed early triumph. With dragons now within range, Theodulf obtained word and issued the order. Defenders stayed ready as the cannons aimed towards their targets. Cannons fired with force, unleashing a barrage of shells towards the advancing Earth dragons. Explosions rocked the ground. The defenders cheered as impacts landed. Initial excitement surged. One of the blasts plainly struck its mark. That optimism vanished instantly. The dragons surged forward entirely unfazed. Their thick armor absorbed the assault effortlessly. Troops panicked. Repeated shots persisted, but doubts grew. If cannon fire couldn't slow them down, options remained dwindling fast. Theodulf hesitated. Trusting Layla and Luna might be risky. He wrestled with the uncertainty of their power versus such overwhelming protection. A solution surfaced in Aisha's mind. If their fresh armament remained complete, they might stand a chance, but powering it required an uncommon draconic magicite. Unexpectedly, Laurent emerged beside her and claimed to possess exactly what she required. His presence caught her entirely off guard. Moments earlier, Laurent possessed escaped his cell, indulging in his bizarre curiosity by hugging a golem. Nothing emerged to restrain him. Regardless of his antics, he confirmed the claim. He genuinely had a draconic magicite in his possession, carried with him everyone along. Without delay, Laurent disclosed the glowing gem. Its radiant force shimmered, holding the potential to shift the clash's tide. Aisha examined the magicite with just one look. She confirmed its authenticity, though Laurent even provided a certificate. Curious, she questioned why he possessed such a precious item. Laurent casually acknowledged it emerged meant for negotiations with elves. He clarified the existence of an elven settlement deeper within the realm of death, an opportunity he had wished to exploit. Regardless of the rumor's appeal, he had never found the settlement. Seeing the value in this fresh settlement, he chose to invest here instead. Laurent agreed to hand over the magicite, but with a condition: protect the settlement and enter an exclusive trade deal with his company. Though Aisha stayed cautious, she acknowledged the potential of the magicite. Accepting the proposal, she emphasized her settlement's coming. Believing in the opportunity, she sealed the agreement with a handshake. Laurent responded with visible satisfaction. Their deal finalized, the magicite emerged inserted into a console. Laurent silently recognized he underestimated the young leader's resolve. The fresh armament, a sorcery cannon, was disclosed in full. With no time to test, deployment started instantly. It possessed a labor now, gripping the control lever. Aisha readied himself to fire. Unlike conventional artillery, this sorcery-fueled armament vowed a much stronger impact. As the dragons surged, the sorcery cannon unleashed a blinding beam. Lightning crackled as the force surged forward. Upon impact, the ground erupted in an enormous explosion. A mighty shockwave swept throughout the combat zone. Spectators remained amazed. Even Laurent, known for his eccentric confidence, reacted in awe at the unexpected scale of the blast. When the dust cleared, the message seemed clear: Earth dragons had been entirely halted. Reassurance started to spread among the defenders. Within the shelter, cheers broke out. The maid relayed the news, and the residents celebrated with delight and disbelief. As the smoke settled, a fresh threat emerged. A dark swarm neared rapidly, catching everyone off guard. Dozens of wyverns filled the sky. Their numbers remained overwhelming, spreading panic among the defenders. Theodulf demanded answers, but Laurent denied any involvement. Tension stood as the origin of the threat stayed unclear. With the sorcery cannon still recharging and standard artillery useless, two warriors shifted forward. Confident and composed, they readied himself to take control of the combat zone. A swarm of wyverns surged across the skies, casting shadows over the fortress. Theodulf stayed on the wall beside two skilled warriors. Confident in his preparations, Theodulf observed as the fighters shifted forward, keeping them in reserve. Proven strategic. From the high platform, Theodulf issued commands. Cannons required time to recharge. 10 minutes of delay he couldn't afford. An explosion of wings filled the sky. One fighter counted the wyverns aloud. Theodulf, focused on survival, recalled them. They couldn't linger. Regardless of the pressure, Theodulf stayed composed with trusted companions beside him. He braced for the longest 10 minutes. Determination flashed in the gaze of both warriors. With unwavering resolve, they announced their intent to eliminate each final wyvern threatening the fortress skies. Without pausing, they launched forward. The beastman's claws extended as her blade shimmered with force. Theodulf observed from behind, analyzing the foe's threat level. Wyverns weren't ordinary beasts. They could fly, breathe fire, and rip across armor with claws and fangs. Each one posed a lethal challenge. Even so, Theodulf recognized the combat zone wasn't one-sided. With a legendary S-rank adventurer and a formidable Fenrir under his command, their chances weren't hopeless. Steel clashed and wings tore across the air. The two warriors struck with overwhelming force. Pride swelled within the party as Theodulf and his companions commended the two warriors. With the wyverns crushed and debris scattered throughout the territory, the two fighters stayed back, encircled by the remains of their opponents. One casually remarked on the count of fallen wyverns, claiming a slight edge in numbers. The other, unfazed, noted the clash concluded faster than expected, her claws retracting as the dust settled. Tension between them surfaced. Layla teased about becoming Theodulf's main wife, as the other denied any such relationship. Though competitive, Layla gripped back. She claimed her full power stayed sealed, implying that her real power was far greater. A second wave of wyverns soared in from a fresh direction, catching the defenders by surprise. Layla and her companion dashed across the farmlands, still distant from the settlement. Back at the fortress, the order emerged, given to fire. Explosions erupted as cannons launched their payload, but the wyverns twisted mid-air, easily evading the assaults. With the sorcery cannon still charging, one girl leapt forward, refusing to wait, facing overwhelming odds. She readied herself to confront the opponents directly. Power gathered in her blade as she spun across the air. With one decisive motion, she unleashed Brave Slash, slicing across the approaching wyverns in a sweeping arc. A fresh figure landed on the scene. Surprising everyone, Theodulf raised his gaze to see Alice, an unexpected visitor from his former, greeting him with familiar force. Teasing remarks followed. Alice brought up his banishment and mocked the notion that he possessed cried from loneliness. As Theodulf stayed composed, others reacted to the earlier wyvern strike. Alice deflected attention from her concern, disguising it with insults. Recognition spread as Layla emerged close. Grateful for her assistance, the party acknowledged both women's roles in protecting the settlement. The mood shifted abruptly. Layla started undressing dramatically, claiming she had to be punished for her defeat. Layla clung tightly to Theodulf, demanding a reward for her efforts. Meanwhile, Luna hurried to stop the overzealous warrior from stripping further out of guilt. Prior to he could respond, Aisha abruptly tackled Theodulf with a tight embrace. As Aisha clung to his side, Alice observed unfamiliar faces. Two fresh girls stayed beside Layla and Theodulf, adding to her growing confusion. Looking throughout, Alice recognized the reality. Theodulf was no longer isolated. He had constructed a thriving settlement, encircled by companions and companions. Her strategies to comfort a lonely outcast unraveled. In frustration, she fell dramatically, shouting about her ruined expectations. Martina soaked in the hot spring, her form relaxing as steam curled throughout her shoulders. Behind her, Alice persisted, grumbling as scrubbing Martina's back. Their peaceful bath time unraveled into bickering, disturbing the once tranquil atmosphere. Later, disappointment filled her as the person she possessed, come to see Theodulf, stayed distant. She possessed ventured everyone the way to the realm of death. The frustration lingered. The luxury of the bath itself amazed her. Realization struck as she remembered Theodulf's autocraft ability. Creating such a haven must have been effortless for him, adding to the day's growing list of surprises. A revelation surfaced in the bathhouse as one woman casually mentioned that Prince Theodulf possessed obtained a blessing at birth. Reclining in the warm water, she remembered how Theodulf possessed told her about it during childhood. Slipping deeper into comfort, she expressed reassurance. Keeping the secret possessed weighed on her throughout the bath. Layla froze. Realization struck hard. She possessed never known the reality. Amazed, she confronted the others. Playful teasing followed as Layla's force shifted. Her enthusiasm amused the others. They chalked it up to trust. Theodulf possessed merely confided in someone he believed would understand. The girls stepped out of the bathhouse dressed in matching yukata. Confused by the unfamiliar attire, Theo neared them, pleased by their appearance. Having just completed his duty, he expressed pride in crafting the yukata himself. Clothes, enormous dragon carcasses remained stacked in the plaza. Their scale hinted at the perilous mission Theo possessed just completed. The party gathered again, reflecting on the exhausting conflict. Though drained, they acknowledged the bath brought much required comfort following the ordeal. Shortly afterward, Martina observed how much Theo had grown. It possessed been 2 years since they final met. Martina commended Theodulf's appearance, noting how much healthier he gazed compared to his time in the capital. With a bright smile, Theodulf complimented her in return, catching her off guard embarrassed. Martina scolded him, accusing him of being overly forward. She attempted to regain control of the instant by reminding him not to let compliments go to his head. Sana joined in with a teasing grin, pulling Martina close. She assured Theodulf it emerged just shyness, not offense, and brushed off Martina's reaction. Unable to stop, Sana disclosed how rapidly Martina had hurried to aid following hearing of Theodulf's exile. Flustered and overwhelmed, Martina attempted to silence her. The party seemed amazed to learn Alice had punched Niels. She confessed without regret, explaining she acted because he insulted Theodulf. Startled yet touched, Theodulf smiled and appreciated her. Her act of protection meant further than she recognized. Embarrassed by the gesture, Alice flinched as he seized her hand in gratitude. The sudden contact caught her entirely off guard. As she froze, others enthusiastically encouraged her to make the following move. Their teasing shoved her towards an awkward decision she wasn't ready to make. Locked in a silent stare, both exchanged confused expressions. Theodulf questioned about her hesitation. Just as tensions started to rise, a fox-eared merchant interrupted the party, requesting everyone's attention with a sly smile. Laurent stayed proudly, tied up from head to toe. The residents had compelled him to repent for bringing earth dragons into their realm. Without missing a beat, he proposed a business deal offering to purchase the dragon materials wholesale for the Bestia Company. Alice, skeptical of his intentions, recalled him how precious those materials genuinely remained. Dragon blood could produce mighty medicine. Their claws and fangs forged arms that broke across any shield, and their scales crafted the strongest armor. Laurent confidently announced that he possessed already calculated the value of the dragon materials. According to him, 1 dragon equaled a hefty pile of gold. Still, Alice found the valuation lacking, claiming it wouldn't even cover half the potential worth regardless of the high stakes. Theodulf proposed a trade. He had surplus materials and was willing to sell. In exchange, he desired equivalent goods for the remaining gold value. Everyone listened closely as the deal emerged finalized. Theodulf requested iron and Laurent agreed. Just as the meeting wrapped up, Alice's stomach growled loudly. Embarrassed, she shouted about skipping meals during her trip. Theodulf, his stomach growling, acknowledged he emerged getting hungry. With a knowing smile, he hinted that the provisions should be ready soon and invited Laurent to join them. Everyone gathered with cheerful expressions. They possessed survived the clash, secured a trade. Within the grand hall, the residents raised their mugs high. Laughter spread across the area as voices shouted in unison. 2 girls shifted forward dramatically, each lifting a covered tray. The lids arrived off, revealing a feast centered throughout an uncommon delicacy: dragon meat. Roasted, grilled, and expertly readied. The dishes sparked awe and hunger. This feast emerged both a reward. An uncommon feast awaited the residents, their gaze gleaming enthusiastically. As the dragon meat was unveiled without pausing, they started eating. Sliced portions of meat glistened on the table, and forks rapidly shifted. A girl who possessed long endured a bland diet in the realm of death tasted the meat. Her expression lit up with pure delight. Not everyone shared the identical enthusiasm. A worried tone questioned the safety of eating dragon meat from such a polluted realm. Silently, Theodulf clarified. The meat possessed been purified using the divine hoe, capable of removing everyone's taint. Though hesitant at initial, Alice seemed encouraged to join the others. She nervously neared the table. Fork in hand, surprise overtook her instantly. The rich umami exploded throughout her tongue, overwhelming her with flavor. Curious, she questioned who emerged responsible for the perfect preparation. The others clarified it emerged the handiwork of a Maid team trained personally by Layla, skilled not only in combat but cooking. That revelation amazed her. These maids, commended like elite troops, possessed just earned 95 points from their head maid for the dish. Elsewhere, the feast spread further. Even the wolves enjoyed dragon meat. Festivities persisted under the night sky. Laughter and conversation filled the lively hall. As others enjoyed the feast, Alice settled silently, her thoughts distant. Noticing her mood, Layla and the others encouraged her to eat. Comments about growing stronger and healthier remained, followed by playful teasing. Layla shifted her attention to Prince Theo, presenting him with a bowl of dragon stew. Without warning, she drew Theo close, declaring her place at his side. Layla, unfazed, stayed firm in her belief that she had to protect him from each admirer. The tension escalated. A misunderstanding caused the observers to jump to conclusions. Accusations of indecency followed, leaving everyone scrambling for an explanation. Tension started to rise when accusations remained flung towards Theo, involving both a maid and a beastwoman. Embarrassed but determined, she blurted out her personal willingness to be involved, cheeks flushed with conflicted emotions. The atmosphere shifted as hostility brewed, glares remained exchanged, and challenges were thrown. Neither side emerged willing to back down, standing expression to face. They clashed verbally, each claiming the upper hand. The maid spoke, condescendingly dismissing the match. Up as unfair, Theo, caught in the middle, endured their escalating bickering. Arguments about age and maturity only deepened the divide. A sudden outburst echoed across the building, silencing the heated argument within. The tone demanded an end to the bickering. Meanwhile, the watch team stayed stationed on the walls. Vigilant under the night sky, reassurance reached as a cheerful maid emerged, carrying a covered tray. Her gratitude raised the party's spirits. As she disclosed the provisions, excitement erupted. To the guards, she emerged like a divine presence delivering salvation. The instant of delight didn't final. A sudden shift in mood struck as danger loomed. Orders remained given rapidly, urgency replacing laughter. Panic erupted within the hall as an urgent message reached different creature strike was underway. One girl hurried across the corridor, questioning the scale of the threat. To her surprise, she emerged informed that it wasn't a group but a single creature. That news brought some reassurance. A single opponent sounded manageable, especially compared to an entire dragon horde. Nevertheless, hesitation followed. The source of their concern ultimately disclosed itself. A colossal beast emerged under the moonlight, its size dwarfing the territoryscape, a living mountain in motion. Gaze widened in disbelief. The enormity of the beast shattered their earlier confidence, replacing it with amazed silence and rising dread. An enormous silhouette loomed under the moonlight. Dust billowed as the troops identified it a calamity, class creature approaching fast. In a chamber brimming with curious gazes, Theodulf introduced a peculiar writing tool. Unlike traditional pens, this one flowed with ink effortlessly and could erase its personal markings. Prior to long, the amazement settled. With a nod from Theodulf, the party gathered as a meeting emerged about to begin. A dire message broke the instant's calm. A towering threat loomed on the horizon, the adamant turtle, a calamity-class creature. Remaining composed, Theodulf detailed the danger. The beast's hide emerged as impenetrable as adamant, a mineral famed for its toughness. Relying on his auto-craft ability, Theodulf rapidly outlined a solution. Materials fused logically, iron with glass, dye with wood. To explain the threat, Theodulf illustrated the adamant turtle's terrifying nature. Normal arms remained useless. The beast healed instantly, like battling a walking mountain. As sketching tactics, she emphasized one crucial moment. When the turtle surged its strike, it lowered its guard. Cautiously redrawing the instant, she highlighted the turtle's vulnerable window. During its enormous mana release, fortifications dropped briefly, just enough to create a tactical opportunity. That's when the strategy struck. A sorcery cannon shot fired directly into the beast's mouth would deal devastating internal damage. Though one member reacted to the graphic nature, different clarified her background. Mercenary life possessed hardened her. The strategy to defeat the adamant turtle became clear. Attacking it from the within seemed their only chance. As the strategy seemed sound, uncertainty lingered. Theodulf recalled everyone that the sorcery cannon wasn't a sure solution, so the residents required evacuation regardless. As the threat loomed, the scale of destruction it could cause emerged undeniable. Orders followed rapidly. The Maid unit would guide civilians to safety, as troops stayed ready to guard the settlement. Amid the mobilization, Theodulf started setting a trap. Others joined the attempt, loading arms and preparing fortifications, unified in their goal to hold back the monstrous turtle. Theodulf triggered his autocraft ability to create an enormous pit under him, forming a lethal trap using autocraft. Again, he constructed an enormous rampart, ensuring the turtle couldn't bypass their protection. Ultimately, exhaustion overcame him. He fell and awoke by the following morning, startled to realize he had passed out following overworking. To his surprise, he possessed been resting on Alice's lap. She silently clarified it seemed to keep him comfortable and avoid injury from sleeping on the hard floor. Regardless of insisting he had responsibilities, Alice recalled him of his efforts. For now, she encouraged him to rest. Knowing he possessed already done further than enough, Alice confronted Theodulf about his constant overworking. Her words remained firm, warning him that pushing himself too far could lead to serious consequences. Memories of his former life surfaced. Theodulf possessed once died from overwork. Her concern touched him. Curious, he questioned when he possessed ever assisted her. Alice, mildly annoyed, recalled him of her childhood when she obtained her powers. At just 8 years ancient, Alice emerged chosen to become a hero. She possessed come from humble beginnings, the daughter of diner owners. Following being conjured to the royal castle, her life changed forever. That moment marked the beginning of her journey into a world far greater than she'd ever known. At just 8 years ancient, Alice Scarlet faced intense training. The instructors remained severe. They recalled her that as the chosen hero, she possessed to grow stronger, not for herself but for the realm's sake. Anyone who obtained the hero's power was instantly conjured to the castle and placed in a strict training regime. Her days grew brimming with lessons. She practiced swordsmanship, studied combat strategy, and learned to harness sorcery. But under the structure of training, the purpose grew clear. It wasn't just ability development. It was a system designed to erase innocence and forge a living armament across control and manipulation. As Alice strode across the castle halls, whispers followed her. Nobles spoke of using her for their benefit, seeing her only as a means to gain blessing. Frustration grew. Regardless of her enhanced hearing, they spoke carelessly, never addressing her sincerely, faces blurred behind praise, repeating hero like a chant. No one bothered to know who she genuinely seemed under the power she carried. Uncertainty and sadness surfaced. Alice questioned if anyone possessed ever called her by name. Yet in her memories, one place stayed out. Back in the diner, residents called her Alice's kindly, asking for drinks or inviting her to play. Alone and overwhelmed, Alice broke down. The burdens of being a child hero possessed crushed her spirit. That lonely moment marked her lowest point. Yet someone neared, unknowingly bringing her comfort. Back then, Theo possessed merely shown concern. He called her by name, questioned if she emerged okay, and treated her like a person, not a title. Though unable to express it prior to, Alice now remembered that moment. Plainly, Theo had seen her for who she genuinely seemed under the label of hero. With a gentle smile, she appreciated him. Due to his kindness, she found power to stay real to herself, even within the walls of the castle. Alice teased Theo for his solitary habits, claiming he possessed turned loneliness into an art as she trained. Theo attempted to deny it, but Alice interrupted with a suggestion prior to the upcoming conflict with the turtle. She brought up the previous night's conversation, hinting at a personal blessing he possessed mentioned. Her tone further serious. Looking directly at him, Alice proposed they try together a bold yet heartfelt offer between ancient companions. At the castle town's edge, the red-haired girl brought up final night's enigmatic blessing topic, facing Theodulf with confident force. She casually suggested trying it with him, sparking immediate tension. Her proposal caught Theodulf entirely off guard. He panicked, plainly misunderstanding the nature of the blessing. They settled down on a wooden bench. She leaned closer, expression serious, questioning whether he even wished to go across with it. Closing the distance, she abruptly placed her hands on his cheeks. Theodulf froze as she sternly demanded silence, gaze unwavering and posture unwavering. Without pausing, she leaned in and kissed him. The blessing emerged transferred. The initial attempt traveled poorly. Theodulf winced in pain, clutching his mouth as she doubled over frustrated. Ignoring the awkward mishap, without giving him time to respond, she shifted in and kissed him steadfastly. This time, neither flinched. Multiple moments passed in silence as the kiss deepened. Their coordination improved with each attempt, no longer clumsy. Following parting, she turned red with embarrassment but masked it by mocking Theodulf's flustered reaction. Both settled in silence afterward. She clarified her intent, insisting the kiss emerged only for transferring blessing. Theodulf nodded, completely aware but still visibly overwhelmed by the experience. Though she attempted to mask her real feelings, Alice's spirit throbbed. Theodulf, unaware, smiled and expressed gratitude for everything she possessed done. Abruptly, Alice leaned into his chest, catching him by surprise. With a soft gaze, she disclosed the reality she had always wished to share this moment with him. Snapping out of the vulnerable silence, she stayed up and announced their session complete. Teasingly, she vowed to continue where they departed off, but only following the clash was over. Prior to parting, Alice stepped in close once more. Her tone turned serious as she cautioned him. He must survive. Alice smiled faintly as Theodulf stayed with renewed confidence. Determined and focused, he clenched his fist and announced they would win the clash together. Cannons roared throughout the fortified town walls. Their fortifications had been readied in advance, and the combat zone trembled under the weight of the foe's arrival. On the ramparts, Theodulf reviewed the upgraded sorcery cannon. His companions voiced their trust, noting his foresight in preparing for a calamity-class threat. Meanwhile, Martina, the castle's eccentric engineer, seemed hard at labor tuning the cannon's sorcery circuits. Startled by Theodulf's visit, Martina snapped to attention. She reported triumph, power, range, and reload speed possessed everyone been enhanced. As Theodulf readied for the clash forward, a fox-eared girl leaned over his shoulder. She pointed out how popular he possessed become, as he stayed oblivious to everyone's feelings. Elsewhere, the sorcery cannon stayed towering, freshly upgraded. Martina clarified her modifications improved efficiency, further magicite slots, and added power. With the enhancements arrived danger. Overloading it could cause the cannon to explode. Martina brushed off the praise with embarrassment, though her aid possessed been critical. Later, he observed as Martina silently avoided him again. He longed to be closer companions with her, but she always slipped away unnoticed. A woman neared Theodulf, questioning if he genuinely didn't need her in the conflict. She clarified that releasing her divine power would alert a mighty opponent. Theodulf proposed a fresh role for her protecting the residents. She agreed, acknowledging that this emerged a duty only he could entrust to her, to ensure everyone's safety. Theodulf constructed a mobile home. Even the underground shelter would not withstand the threat of the adamant turtle. He directed her to move the mobile home if danger reached Ado close. She smiled, accepting the responsibility, knowing it emerged a mission only she could accomplish. Confidently and pride, the fox-eared woman pledged to protect each single villager. As noon struck, the earth trembled. The enormous silhouette of the adamant turtle emerged on the horizon right on schedule. Regardless of their preparations, anxiety stood among the party. Facing a calamity-class threat wasn't something anyone could take lightly. Curiously, the turtle possessed never shown aggression prior to its peaceful nature, crafted the current situation. Everyone the further suspicious, a night delivered unexpected news to Theodulf. Martina possessed found something peculiar in the wyverns previously slain, something that might explain the turtle's behavior. Martina's analysis disclosed a disturbing truth: traces of mind control sorcery possessed been embedded within the wyverns' bodies. Theodulf rapidly pieced it together. Earth dragons and even the adamant turtle remain likely being manipulated by the identical spell. Realization struck hard. This wasn't a coincidence. Someone was intentionally targeting their settlement using controlled creatures as arms. Casting such a high-level spell would require an enormous amount of mana and uncommon magical resources. Only those backed by royal-level funding could manage it. They concluded the foe possessed probably exhausted significant power to control the adamant turtle. Theodulf faced the entrance, knowing the final conflict loomed. His spirit pounded, not from dread but anticipation. Instead of panic, excitement filled his chest. For once, he embraced the challenge forward. Theodulf stayed aboard his armored vessel, staring forward at the colossal adamant turtle advancing towards the fortress. Enormous cracks spread throughout the combat zone as hidden mechanisms under the ground triggered. The earth shook violently. The pitfall triggered perfectly. With a thunderous crash, the turtle's front half plummeted into the gaping chasm. Recognizing the opportunity, Theodulf issued a swift command to his troops. Without pausing, they readied the cannons for a coordinated barrage. Explosions thundered throughout the farmland as volleys of cannon fire lit the sky. The initial stage of their counterattack possessed begun with overwhelming force. Explosions tore into the adamant turtle's side as cannon fire pounded its enormous form. Positioned beside the forefront, the prince readied the sorcery cannon. His scheme was precise fire directly into the beast's mouth. Once it opened, ensuring a devastating struck from within abruptly. The ground rumbled. Dust billowed as the turtle shifted. Theodulf recognized the pitfall wouldn't restrain the beast much longer. As the beast started lifting itself, he turned to two warriors standing close, placing his hopes on them to buy time. Without pausing, the blade-wielding fighter and her companion leapt into action. Confident and fearless, they surged forward to confront the towering opponent head. On, the two warriors unleashed a synchronized strike, channeling their strongest blade techniques. A mighty cross-shaped slash exploded from their combined strike, tearing across the turtle's armored hide with precision and force. Blood burst from the beast's wound. Their assault had succeeded in piercing its thick protection, dealing real damage for once. From the command post, Theodulf confirmed the impact and commanded the artillery to continue firing. Troops rapidly reloaded, capitalizing on the foe's weakened state. Cannon fire struck again, targeting the turtle's limbs. As force gathered within the beast, a faint glow started forming within its mouth. The adamant turtle reared its head and roared, its enormous mouth glowing with concentrated mana. In an instant, the force condensed into a searing sphere of destructive light, pulsing with unstable force as it neared release. Its jaws opened wide. Light radiated outward, illuminating the combat zone as the surge blast grew stronger by the second. Theodulf observed a critical problem. Alice and Layla stayed in the turtle's direct line of fire. Instead of targeting fortifications, it focused its rage on the pair below. Theodulf recognized too late the beast was retaliating versus those who had struck it hardest. Faced with the imminent blast, Alice dashed forward without pausing. Layla turned in surprise as her companion hurried into danger. Leaping into the air, Alice shouted to grab the turtle's attention. Her movement shifted its aim, drawing the beast's glowing gaze towards her. Theodulf observed across the scope as Alice aligned perfectly with the target. Just as the turtle readied himself to release its mana blast, a sudden blur of motion crossed the line of fire. Reassurance followed confusion. Layla possessed reached her in time and drew her away from danger. Alice smiled as Layla gripped her safely in her arms. Their timing possessed worked perfectly, and both recognized the cost they narrowly avoided. At the command station, Theodulf gripped the cannon controls. The sorcery cannon ignited with immense force. Blinding force surged from the barrel, launching a concentrated blast towards the turtle's open mouth. A glowing trail split the sky as the projectile closed in. The turtle stayed motionless, still charging its personal force. A thunderous explosion erupted on impact. Shards flew and light engulfed the beast. From the ground and walls, everyone observed the resulting devastation with awe and optimism. The adamant turtle crashed to the ground with a deafening thud. The impact marked the end of its rampage. Cheers erupted from the fortress walls. Troops raised their arms in triumph as Alice and Layla tapped blades in quiet celebration. Sana obtained praise for her decisive command. Though credited for the strategy, she acknowledged everyone's role in defeating the calamity. Class creature. Theodulf scanned the combat zone, wondering where Alice and Layla had gone. Unnoticed prior to, the turtle's eye twitched. Under layers of stone and wounds, a faint glare emerged, signs that the threat might not be over. An enormous beast stirred under layers of scorched rock, its eye glowing with renewed rage. Regardless of enduring the full force of the sorcery cannon, the beast rejected to fall. Panic spread among the defenders as they recognized the foe hadn't been defeated. The earth cracked as the beast roared, sending tremors throughout the combat zone from the pit meant to trap it. The beast clawed its way out. Observers braced for its following move, knowing it possessed grown wary of their tactics. Instead of exposing its frail point, it surged. The monstrous creature loomed over the barricade, threatening to flatten everything in its path. Though the fortress gripped, the foe's pressure maintained mount. Faced with a dire situation, Theodulf struggled to decide. Attempting to block the beast would only delay disaster. Abruptly, he spotted something falling prior to the beast. Recognition sparked as he shouted names, rallying his companions in desperation. Action possessed to be immediate. Loyal wolves emerged from the ramparts, heads raised and alert. A letter seemed readied rapidly. Without delay, the wolves remained entrusted with a crucial delivery, one that could change the outcome of the clash. Theodulf turned to Silk, his trusted wolf companion, with a determined appeal. Without pausing, Silk agreed, ready to lead him under the enormous adamant turtle. Preparation started rapidly. Urgently in his tone, Theodulf entrusted command to Sana as mounting Silk. Without delay, he launched forward. Those watching could only stare as he dashed off, vanishing over the ramparts. Sana, startled by his boldness, sensed unwavering resolve in his actions. Meanwhile, different warrior leaped into conflict. Her blade struck with precision, delivering a mighty thrust into the turtle's armor. Without pausing, she unleashed a follow-up strike. Her blade, drawing technique, silver flash, carved across the foe's fortifications. The clash shifted unfavorably as the adamant turtle emerged completely from the pit. Regardless of coordinated strikes, the warrior's efforts seemed to hardly register. Without warning, the beast slammed its tail, sending debris flying in everyone's directions as it planted itself steadfastly. Its jaws opened and a bright glow shaped within. A concentrated blast of force exploded from its mouth, shaking the ground and scattering everything close. Among the party, someone recognized the tactic. The turtle wasn't attacking blindly, it emerged using its regenerative power as a shield. Understanding its strategy didn't make defeating it easier. The defenders pressed on, realizing their opponents seemed never only mighty, but dangerously intelligent. Orders remained issued without pausing. One fighter dashed forward to draw the turtle's attention, trusting her companions to assist her escape. Meanwhile, a mighty technique triggered under the beast. An enormous spear erupted from the earth, the result of Theodulf's autocraft ability. Dust settled as Theodulf reappeared, relieved to see Layla and Alice secure. Riding confidently towards the front line, Theodulf assessed the foe's state. The adamant turtle possessed grown cautious, its mouth tightly shut. Following analyzing the circumstances, Theodulf faced the party and announced a single solution. Only one strategy stayed capable of defeating the beast, and he seemed ready to carry it out. Theodulf gathered the party and directed their attention to the underside of the adamant turtle. Cracks lined the beast's shell, damage likely departed behind by earlier cannon strikes. These fractures presented an uncommon opportunity, but it would require a mighty blow to break across. One warrior stepped up, eager to act. Theodulf cautioned her, knowing the duty wouldn't be simple, even for their strongest attacker. With a determined smile, he assured everyone that he possessed already formulated a strategy. Though concerns about his safety surfaced, the team agreed to move forward. Theodulf's scheme provided their best chance regardless of the danger it posed to him personally. Concerns about manpower remained rapidly voiced. Theodulf, nevertheless, stayed confident, revealing that reinforcements possessed already been arranged. Luna appeared with a cheerful grin, having evacuated the residence prior to joining the combat zone with her arrival. Greatest roles in the strategy remained covered. A few humorous complaints emerged, but the party emerged one step closer to readiness. Theodulf assured everyone he possessed already crafted arrangements for the final role. Facing the towering beast together, they gathered for what could be their final stand. With firm resolve in their gaze, the party readied himself to set their final scheme into motion. Aisha reached with a box full of glowing magicite shards, urgently responding to Theo's appeal. Others gathered rapidly, questioning her presence and the sudden delivery. The mage in the party outlined the following step. They would use the shards to fuel the sorcery cannon. Caution spread across the area as she clarified the risks. The amplified sorcery could cause an explosion, requiring careful control as firing. Within the cannon's control chamber, an elaborate system glowed with unknown symbols. Regardless of his enthusiasm, the mage insisted on handling the duty herself. Theodulf's trust weighed on her, and she couldn't afford to fail. One of the team members, a determined girl, reached at her assigned position. She recalled herself that precision and timing remained crucial to executing their strategy successfully. Stepping into place, she gazed towards the combat zone and reaffirmed her trust in the others. Elsewhere, companions maintained the colossal turtle engaged. Explosions rang out as they struggled to maintain the beast's attention, buying precious seconds until the awaited signal. Amid the chaos, one warrior leapt forward with grace and intensity, blade flashing. Tension escalated as two fighters exchanged defiant banter mid-conflict, undeterred by the beast looming over them. As others engaged the foe, the girl monitored the combat zone, her thoughts weighed anxiously. Martina's assignment seemed especially perilous, and the sorcery cannon still posed a serious risk. Unexpectedly, a fresh volunteer shifted forward without pausing. She announced her ability to operate the cannon, drawing everyone's attention. Surprise rippled across the party. Questions followed instantly as they demanded to know how she gained such knowledge. The girl clarified that she possessed always been by Theo's side, closely observing his actions. Amazement spread among the party. Regardless of having no magical training, she mastered the system on her personal. Worried for her safety, one of the team members suggested that Martina regulate the sorcery cannon's power as he handled the firing. She reflected on her former, admitting her lack of combat ability. During former threats, she could only rely on others for protection. Regardless of her limitations, she expressed a clear desire to contribute from the rear lines. Shifted by her words, the mage moved forward with reassurance. They vowed to protect her as she carried out her role. The party rapidly shaped a scheme, agreeing to shield her if the cannon malfunctioned. Grateful for their assistance, Martina smiled and appreciated them everyone. The sorcery cannon roared to life, emitting a low hum as symbols glowed throughout its surface. Within, the mage adjusted the controls as Martina took her place in the chair, focused and steady. Following final checks, the team confirmed readiness. A signal had to be sent instantly to alert the front lines that the cannon was readied. From the combat zone, gaze locked onto the explosive blast that launched skyward. Recognizing the sign, the girl in command granted the order. She directed everyone to unleash their full power versus the foe. Without pausing, the fighters responded. Shouts of determination erupted as each readied himself to strike with everything they had. Riding a transformed Fenrir, the warrior synchronized her strike with her partner. Meanwhile, Martina stayed at the ready. With the cannon reloaded, she confirmed she was readied himself to launch the following shot. A swordswoman advanced, channeling her force into a mighty technique. Her intention emerged clear a path for Theo to move forward. The wolf and its rider unleashed a combo strike with devastating force, tearing into the foe's fortifications with precision. Not to be outdone, different fighter followed up instantly. Her final slash released overwhelming force, contributing to the team's synchronized assault. The instant reached, with force surged to the limit. The sorcery cannon unleashed an enormous beam of power. A blinding explosion tore into the territoryscape, sending debris flying as the blast struck with devastating force. As the smoke cleared, confirmation arrived and its forelegs remained entirely destroyed. Reassurance and gratitude filled the team's hearts. As the foe faltered, a tone stood with conviction, inventory space emerged opened, and someone shifted forward to finish the job. Using autocraft, a towering steel structure took shape over the combat zone. Conjured in an instant to end the conflict, the enormous steel tower arrived crashing down with precision. Its impact split the combat zone, sealing the final blow. Regardless of its earlier power, the towering beast let out a final roar as its form started to collapse. With its limbs shattered and its form buried, the beast fell motionless. Reassurance washed over the fighters watching its defeats. Smiles spread among the party. From warriors to mages, everyone stayed together, celebrating the hard-won victory with cheers and tears. One girl shifted forward, delight and exhaustion written throughout her expression. For once in a long as, they could dream of peace and a coming free of dread. The clash concluded in triumph. Theo's leadership led to the Adamant Turtle's defeat and the territory's liberation. Within a lavish chamber of the Fornia realm, the knight masked the scheming of nobility. Hidden under elegance, Prince Niels Furian plotted confidently. With a smirk, Niels reveled in his manipulation, boasting of the despair he expected to engulf Theodulf and Alice. He raised his cup triumphantly, certain his conquest emerged complete. The Adamant Turtle emerged his, and with it, news soon came back, yet not what he expected. Instead of ruin, the spy reported advancement, farmland, a settlement, thriving life. The final blow landed. The Adamant Turtle, his supposed armament of destruction, possessed, been slain. Amazed by the report, Niels couldn't accept the loss. Earth dragons and wyverns possessed been deployed, yet even those had failed. Frustration erupted. Regardless of sacrificing sacred mana and magical items, victory still slipped across his grasp. Slamming his fist in fury, Niels shouted in disbelief. Theodulf emerged, supposed to be worthless, abandoned by the goddess. Then an idea surfaced, perhaps Alice and Layla possessed lent their power. If so, it merely proved Theodulf's weakness. Consumed by hatred, he swore vengeance. His sorcery flared violently as he vowed to send Theodulf to hell. In the distance, different days started peacefully, unaware of the storm that brewed in Fornia. Night had fallen, but panic spread across the area. Alice hurried across the halls demanding answers. Beyond, the response awaited. The enormous creature's head rested lifeless in the settlement square. Cheers erupted from the residents. Reassurance spread rapidly. Theodulf possessed awakened, and his victory amazed everyone. Villagers hurried to check on him, bringing provisions and concern. Layla embraced him tightly, worry clear in her gaze. She questioned if he emerged in pain, but Theodulf responded with a faint smile and reassured her. Though his form wobbled, he chuckled softly. Layla caught him, her tone scolding but warm. Flushed and flustered, she gripped him close. Theodulf expressed gratitude to Alice, acknowledging her role in the clash. Victory wouldn't have been possible without her aid. He reflected on the hero's blessing, which significantly enhanced his divine powers. Alice responded modestly, but Theodulf insisted her contribution possessed been vital. Together, they possessed achieved something remarkable under the moonlit sky. Alice hesitated, plainly flustered, yet acknowledged she'd fulfill the promise they crafted. Regardless of embarrassment, her resolve stayed firm. Looking at her, Theodulf emerged briefly, amazed. He invited her to his chamber, overwhelmed by how cute she emerged in that moment. Following walking together across the corridor, they stepped into the chamber. Alice, now serious, told Theodulf she wouldn't let him leave, a bold declaration that caught him off guard. Without pausing, she closed the distance and kissed him. Overwhelmed by her intensity, Theodulf could hardly respond. Alice, normally reserved, openly expressed her affection, repeating her feelings with uncommon vulnerability. The atmosphere grew heavy with emotion. Their closeness blurred boundaries, and Alice, flustered yet sincere, acknowledged she might be getting carried away. Caught in the instant, Theodulf responded with unexpected boldness. The tension between them deepened, emotions raw and unspoken. Just as things started to escalate between them, Alice drew away with a startled expression. Abruptly, everything traveled white. Theodulf awoke in a peculiar, boundless space, the realm of the gods. A familiar presence observed him with a knowing expression. Confused, he questioned if something serious possessed happened. Though not dead, he possessed apparently shoved himself too far and fell. The goddess clarified his form couldn't handle absorbing divine blessings so rapidly. Regardless of her scolding, she acknowledged to watching over him. Grateful and humbled, Theodulf silently appreciated her for intervening when it mattered greatest. Beaming proudly, the goddess commended Theodulf for his heroic deeds. Remaining humble, Theodulf credited his companions for their assistance. The goddess, nevertheless, was too proud to hold back her delight, proudly boasting as she stayed tall. Deciding he deserved a reward, she stepped closer with intent. Her playful tone hinted at something bold, leaving Theodulf momentarily startled. Without warning, she kissed him softly. Theodulf froze in surprise, taken by surprise by the goddess's direct and unexpected blessing. She smiled slyly, explaining the kiss arrived with a bonus, a small divine blessing, limited by Alice's earlier involvement. With a radiant smile, the goddess handed Theodulf a shimmering reward, an uncommon chunk of god metal. He questioned if he'd be permitted to receive it again. She agreed, but with one condition: he must keep it a secret. Pleased with his advancement, she encouraged him to continue working hard. Theodulf welcomed the praise, grateful for her assistance. Shortly afterward, his consciousness faded softly. As light came back to the world, a peaceful morning dawned once more. Back in the chamber, Alice emerged still asleep. As Theodulf stirred, she slowly woke up beside him, prompting a soft exchange in the calm following everything. Alice slowly settled up, still drowsy. Theodulf rapidly checked on her, worried following her sudden collapse. Embarrassment replaced sleepiness. She cautioned him not to fall asleep mid-act again, flustered by the awkward tension lingering between them. A week possessed passed since the defeat of the adamant turtle, and the settlement stayed unharmed behind fortified walls. No creature possessed dared approach since then. Life gradually came back to normal, with residents tending crops and enjoying the peace that followed the clash. Footsteps echoed on the ground as a familiar figure arrived back. One of the prince's companions reappeared at the settlement entrance. Merchants reached shortly afterward, led by a confident beast-eared trader. With horses and carts in tow, the vowed goods remained delivered in accordance with a prior agreement. Laurent, once mistrusted, possessed regained the residents' acceptance. As reviewing the contract, Laurent recalled everyone that the domain still lacked an official name. That inquiry possessed initial come up a week earlier. Back then, Theodulf recognized the territory genuinely lacked any name. Long ago, the area possessed been a realm of kings known for its glory and honor. The central town emerged once called Arca, derived from Arcadia, symbolizing a utopia. With that knowledge, the decision grew clear. Theodulf named the entire domain Regalia, and their growing settlement officially grew Arca Settlement. With the naming settled, Laurent's curiosity shifted. He pointed towards a close patch of grass, raising questions about its remarkable nature. The unfamiliar grass possessed ultimately matured, revealing itself as rice, and remarkable crop in this world. Memories of tasting it resurfaced. The texture possessed been dry and crumbly, leaving an unpleasant mouthfeel and lacking flavor. That disappointment led to a bold appeal. Using god metal, a plea emerged crafted to the goddess for authentic Japanese rice. The koshi, hikari from Uenuma, ranked highest among grains. Eager anticipation constructed. Following 13 years without proper rice, preparations for harvest started urgently, especially with visitors arriving. Without delay, the harvest commenced. Using swift swordsmanship, the stalks remained sliced in a single motion, clearing the farmland with precision and speed. Normally, processing rice takes weeks of drying, threshing, husking, and polishing. A steam-powered harvester emerged an option, but Layla's speed crafted her the better choice. Auto craft triggered instantly, producing freshly polished white rice. With only cooking departed, everything seemed almost ready. Time passed rapidly. Within the pot, perfectly steamed rice granted off a soft, fragrant warmth under the morning sun. Familiar aromas spread across the area. The nostalgic scent stirred memories, prompting the notion to shape the rice into something special, cautiously shaped by hand. The final result emerged onigiri, a humble dish but a treasured Japanese comfort provisions, now complete and ready to be shared. The freshly readied rice balls remained shared with everyone. Guests gathered with curiosity as they remained invited to try the unfamiliar provisions. Initial reactions remained uncertain. Some questioned its appearance, others noted its stickiness. The peculiar texture caught numerous off guard. Hesitation lingered, but a few took cautious bites. As uncertainty stayed, they granted it a fair chance regardless of unfamiliarity. Expressions shifted rapidly. Delight spread throughout their faces as they settled together, dressed in traditional wear, savoring the taste. Flavor bloomed with each bite. The springy texture and natural sweetness of koshi hikari rice won them over. Leaving no uncertainty, this emerged a dish to remember. Praise rapidly spread as the onigiri delighted everyone. Villagers suggested making it a local specialty, noting its comforting taste and market potential. Compliments remained directed at Theodulf, though he humbly credited fine soil and seeds. Even the further selective eaters, like elves, would likely enjoy it. The quality emerged undeniable, enough to win over even the pickiest palate. News of an elven settlement close stirred excitement. Luna disclosed its location within the realm of death. Surprising the party, an appeal to visit seemed rapidly denied. Luna cautioned that elves were never open to outsiders and gripped formidable prejudices. Regardless of this, interest in reaching out stayed, hinting at a fresh goal beyond just cooking, forming ties with the elusive elven community. Theodulf expressed concern for the elven settlement, which hadn't been visited in over a century. With firm resolve, Theodulf crafted a bold appeal. Confident in his ability to purify the air, he questioned Luna to guide him there. As a resident of the territory, he sensed a duty to aid. Regardless of knowing the elves might not welcome outsiders, he insisted on trying. Optimism shone in Theodulf's gaze. A fresh journey seemed about to begin, with his goal now set beyond the settlement. Their destination emerged clear. Together, they would head for the hidden elven settlement, readied himself to expression whatever challenges awaited within the ancient woodland. Following a hearty rice feast, Theodulf readied himself to depart for the elven settlement. Prior to he could leave, a fiery girl barged in, enraged at being departed behind. Her determination emerged clear. She wouldn't accept being excluded. Regardless of being dragged away by her companions, she rejected to back down. Others encouraged her to fulfill her duties as the hero, reminding her of an ongoing demon extermination mission. Meanwhile, Theodulf reached in the elven settlement only to be overwhelmed. Luna responded confidently, assuring everyone of her full attention to his needs. Alice, watching silently, clenched her teeth as Luna vowed to serve Theodulf day and night. Layla struggled as Sana restrained her, refusing to accept the separation. Her protest grew louder, but Sana gripped her tightly. Reluctantly, Layla backed down. With an awkward smile, Sana wished Theodulf luck on his mission. Shortly afterward, the party assembled at the outskirts. Luna stayed ready, and Theodulf politely questioned to be taken to the elven settlement. Riding an enormous wolf, they dashed throughout the territory. The beast shifted rapidly, carrying its passengers effortlessly wrapped in soft fur. Both Luna and Theodulf savored the warmth. Delight radiated from their faces. Traveling like this, encircled by fluff, granted them a simple yet pure feeling of happiness. Racing throughout the territory, Theodulf marveled at how rapidly the settlement vanished from sight. The speed amazed him, and the softness of the ride brought unexpected comfort. A map disclosed the path forward. The elven settlement lay 2 hours away, just beyond the ominous realm of death. As the wolves sprinted across the wasteland, a grim reality settled in. Barren realms stretched endlessly throughout them. Theodulf listened as his companions spoke of restoring the territory. Reviving its beauty grew his silent promise. Ultimately, the dense woodland appeared forward. Luna announced their arrival. The elven settlement waited hidden within the trees. Reaching the woodland's edge, the party stayed amazed. Where death possessed reigned, a sea of green now flourished. At the spirit of the woodland stayed the world tree. This ancient guardian was the cause the woodland stayed untouched by the toxic air. Abruptly, an arrow struck the ground prior to them. Each member froze in place, their gaze locking on the unexpected threat. Instinctively, Luna shifted to shield Theodulf. Her warning emerged clear: this place possessed protectors. From deeper in the woods, a firm tone commanded them to leave instantly. Over, a fierce elven warrior appeared, blade drawn and gaze sharp. From over the trees, the elf readied herself for confrontation. Theodulf attempted to cause with her, urging peaceful dialogue. In an instant, the elf launched herself towards him. Her movements remained swift and precise. There emerged no time to react as she closed the distance in an instant. Prior to the blade could reach its target, Luna intercepted. Her armament clashed with the elf's, halting the assault just in time. Locking blades, Luna issued a stern warning. She recalled the elf of her offense, drawing steel versus a prince. Abruptly, divine force erupted. A commanding tone called for calm. Luna shifted forward, her presence radiating power. Theodulf stayed speechless as he learned Luna hadn't visited in a century. Elena, amazed, questioned Luna's presence with humans and disclosed the elder's real age, over 100 years. Without pausing, Luna drew her companions close, smiling kindly. She introduced them as her trusted companions. Breaking the pause, Luna requested access to the settlement. She expressed a desire to speak with the chief. Elena glanced at her, still weighing the circumstances. Following a moment of silence, she relented. Permission emerged, granted only out of respect for Luna. Yet, that reassurance emerged short-lived. Elena snapped at Theodulf, warning him not to address her by name. Determined to succeed, Theodulf planned to earn trust, cleanse the territory's air, and forge peace with the elves. Led by a confident elf, Theodulf and his companions remained escorted deep into the woodland. Their journey persisted in silence as tension hung between species. At the front strode Eleonora, a towering presence radiating authority. She gripped the highest rank among the elves and showed no warmth towards humans. Ultimately, they reached at Ilfa, an elf settlement nestled within colossal trees. Wooden homes lined the enormous trunks, connected by bridges over the woodland floor. Amazed by the architecture, Theodulf observed the surroundings with wide gaze. Regardless of the beauty, he sensed discomfort in the air from over. Elves peeked out, pointing and whispering in alarm. Tension spread across the area as Theodulf and his group stepped into the spirit of the elf settlement. Unease crept in as Theodulf pondered the settlement's cold reception. Judging by the intensity of their glares, the elves plainly gripped deep resentment towards humans. A towering, muscular elf emerged prior to them, his presence overwhelming. Regardless of his intimidating appearance, he formally welcomed Lady Luna and her companions, guided towards a modest home. They were told it belonged to the settlement chief. To everyone's surprise, a smiling woman named Anaros introduced herself as the chief. Within the chief's home, Anaros shared the cause behind her position. Her father possessed passed from the poisonous air years ago. As the discussion persisted, she questioned Theodulf's motives for settling in such a hostile realm. His goal of coexistence startled her. Elsewhere, Luna advised Theodulf to keep his royal identity hidden, revealing his status might damage any chance of peace. The wolf spirit cautioned him further. Elves grip deep, rooted hatred towards royalty and would reject any authority outright. Sitting alone, Theodulf reflected on the advice. Though hiding the reality may ease negotiations, it would create distance. Regardless of warnings, Theodulf disclosed his identity as the third prince of the Fornia realm. He announced his mission to reclaim the cursed realm under royal command. The announcement sparked immediate outrage. Eleonora responded with fury, accusing him of attempting to take their homeland by force. Tension escalated as Eleonora reached for her armament, but Anaros stepped in. She steadfastly halted her sister, refusing to allow any harm towards their guests. With a stern smile, Anaros emphasized her authority. Her tone departed no chamber for resistance, and Eleonora froze under her sister's pressure. The confrontation concluded with Eleonora storming out, frustrated but silent. Anaros, still calm, sighed at her sister's stubbornness. Anaros leaned forward and questioned a pointed inquiry. Why had Fornia chosen to reclaim this realm now? Theodulf hesitated but agreed to explain. Lying back on the bench, he acknowledged the official cause seemed only a cover. In truth, the realm lacked any interest in reclaiming anything. He confessed he possessed been exiled, labeled a defeat by the goddess. His banishment to the realm of death possessed been a punishment. Regardless of the former, Theodulf announced his real desire to build a peaceful home for everyone who lived there. He questioned for their cooperation as equals. Following a moment of silence, Anaros dismissed her guards. She chose to trust him, at least enough to hear further. With the chamber cleared, only Theodulf, Lady Luna, and Anaros stayed. Suspicion lingered as Theodulf questioned what she intended to reveal. Anaros started by bowing profoundly, apologizing for her sister Eleonora's hostility. She acknowledged the elf's behavior crossed a line. Embarrassed by the gesture, Theodulf encouraged her not to bow. Still, her sincerity departed a formidable impression on him. Anaros clarified her cause for privacy. What she planned to share couldn't be overheard by the others. It worried the settlement's long-standing grudge versus humans. She remembered events from 2 decades prior. Back then, the elves lived peacefully beside the world tree, unaware of the dangers beyond. As preparing for migration, the elves encountered a wounded adventurer in the woodland. They healed him and constructed trust over time, maintaining contact even following his return to the town. Later, he provided to aid with their relocation. Everything emerged promising until one moment shattered that illusion. The adventurer betrayed them. It possessed been a trap from the beginning, and Anaros concluded up chained and helpless in his grasp. Reflecting on that event, the elves acknowledged they once trusted a human. That mistake possessed departed lasting scars on their hearts. The elves reached at their designated migration site only to find it occupied by armed humans. Unbeknownst to them, the men remained slave traders who targeted elves for profit. Seeing them as precious goods, the traffickers shifted rapidly to capture and sell them. Chaos erupted as the elves resisted. A fierce confrontation broke out, forcing them to defend themselves and retreat. During the retreat, one elf emerged captured due to a moment of inattention. Fortunately, his sister intervened instantly, breaking across the chaos and rescuing him prior to harm could be done. Back in safety, others listened in shock as the reality reached at light. The aftermath of the ambush departed deep scars. Some villagers, especially the older sister, grew to despise humans. Though she acknowledged that not each human was cruel, others in the settlement stayed bitter and distrustful. The betrayal possessed hardened numerous hearts beyond repair. Hearing this, Theodulf crafted a decision. He resolved to earn the elves' trust slowly, across action and time. Regardless of his enthusiasm, his words were met with uncertainty. Winning over elves wouldn't be easy, and the others emerged unsure how to respond to his determination. One villager found his attitude amusing and endearing. With laughter and curiosity, she encouraged Different to give him a chance. Uncertainty lingered in her expression, yet she couldn't deny there seemed something remarkable about him. Luna's quiet trust assisted soften the judgment persuaded by Luna's assistance. the settlement leader agreed to let the boy stay. Gratitude filled his expression as the decision seemed crafted. Curious about his surroundings, he questioned a tour of the settlement. One elf provided to guide him across the area. Whispers followed his steps. Multiple elves still resented the presence of humans even under Lady Luna's protection. As he wandered, the air sensed oppressive. The world tree resisted the harmful atmosphere, but not entirely. As the noxious air maintained spread, a young elf girl stumbled as carrying supplies. Her power faded rapidly. Shortly afterward, she fell onto the ground, scattering the contents of her basket throughout the dirt. Theodulf hurried to aid, but his movement triggered alarm. One elf drew her blade, blocking his approach and warning him to stay away. Though granted permission to stay, the sharp gaze and drawn blade recalled him that trust was fragile. Different companion intervened, calming the circumstances. She recalled the elf that they reached at build peace, not incite more dread. Recognizing the elf girl's worsening condition, Theodulf suggested creating medicine. Though hesitant, Elena agreed to assist in his decision. Mindful of the trust Anna possessed extended to them. Skepticism spread across the area. Layla mocked his confidence, doubting his ability to treat anything serious. Within the shelter, rows of weakened elves lay motionless. Theodulf started examining one of the afflicted elves. As others hesitated, he focused on gathering information, trying to determine the nature of the condition. It grew clear the girl, Lumina, emerged suffering from the noxious air. Physical and magical force both drained, leaving her in constant pain. Throughout history, those afflicted by the noxious air remained pondered beyond saving. Entire regions possessed fall into it. Fearing for the settlement's coming, Theodulf struggled to find a solution. Tension stood when a protective mother lashed out, demanding he step away from her daughter. A peculiar mark on the girl's skin triggered a memory. He'd seen something similar on contaminated wyvern meat. Realization dawned. If the identical purification method could be applied, he might cleanse the affliction. Determined, he readied his ability. Without pausing, he conjured a tool, divine hoe, and advanced. Confusion and panic spread. Elves shouted to seize him, unaware of his intent. Theodulf triggered his power, striking the ground with the divine hoe. A radiant flash burst out as he touched the afflicted girl's chest. Startled by the sudden light, the elves shielded their gaze. Meanwhile, the girl's pained expression started to soften. As the glow faded, Lumina settled upright. Gasps spread across the chamber as everyone witnessed her transformation. Encircled by amazed villagers, she confirmed her recovery. The pain possessed vanished, and her form shifted freely again. A gentle smile followed. Disbelief spread across the area. For once, someone had reversed the effects of the noxious air, an outcome idea impossible until now. Amid disbelief, Lumina's mother expressed her gratitude. Encouraged, she softly encouraged her daughter to thank the one who had rescued her. With bright smiles, both Theodulf and Lumina exchanged warm words. Reassurance spread throughout their faces as barriers slowly started to fade. Motivated by his triumph, Theodulf requested to treat the other victims. With the divine hoe in hand, he started healing them in succession. That night, delight echoed across the settlement. The elves, once wary, invited him to share in their gratitude. As the party strode away, strategies for tomorrow were already forming. Healing possessed started not just of bodies but of hearts as well. Theodulf learned the world tree itself emerged, being weakened by the identical noxious air without intervention. Even it might collapse. Later he neared Elena and appreciated her for her cooperation. Though distant at initial, she listened silently. She hesitated but expressed gratitude for saving the residents. Embarrassed, she rapidly cautioned him not to misinterpret her kindness. Regardless of the healing, Elena recalled him the root cause stayed. The noxious air still spread unchecked, and the tree's power emerged, fading fast. Theodulf faced the towering world tree, its enormous trunk looming under the moonlight. Awestruck by its sheer size, curious, he placed his hand versus the bark. A familiar aura pulsed under his fingertips, reminiscent of the goddess and Luna. Theodulf rapidly observed faint black veins creeping throughout the bark. The divine power possessed weakened, corrupted by noxious air. Summoning a tool from his inventory, he wielded the divine hoe and struck the corrupted spot. Light burst forth as the decay retreated. Light persisted, flashing throughout the roots as more tainted areas remained cleansed. But exhaustion set in. Theodulf gazed at the bark in disbelief. No matter how numerous times he purified a spot, the corruption came back. An elf woman neared, commenting on his overnight attempt. She clarified that former attempts cutting infected parts or using spells possessed failed. The druid's conclusion emerged, simple yet daunting. The source of the noxious air must be eliminated. Rather than backing down, Theodulf crafted his decision. He would climb the tree and search for the root of the corruption himself. As others observed him vanish into the branches, Luna persisted her feast, amused and curious. His defiance startled even her. Layla handed out onigiri as a sign of goodwill. Theodulf's team possessed readied it to build trust with the elves regardless of the gesture. One elf woman rejected to accept human-crafted provisions. Her rejection startled those who the previous day's events possessed changed her views. Different woman proposed a challenge. If Theodulf succeeded in purifying the world tree and transforming the settlement, the elf must eat an onigiri. Confident in Theodulf's defeat, the elf welcomed the bet but added her personal stakes. With enthusiasm, the woman announced she would hold her to that promise. The terms remained set, and the challenge now rested on Theodulf's shoulders. Theodulf reflected on his fruitless night. Regardless of cautiously inspecting the world tree, the source of the noxious air stayed hidden. Shortly afterward, he encountered Lumina and Lyra beside a small altar. He questioned what they remained doing so early. One of the girls answered with a bright smile they remained praying to the world tree. To the elves, the tree gripped deep meaning. They provided gratitude for protection and prayed for persistent peace in their homeland. Lyra claimed she could hear the tree speak. Her sister dismissed the notion as fantasy, but her conviction caught Theodulf's attention and planted a fresh idea in his mind. Lumina's stories stemmed from her grandmother's tales about the world tree having a soul and a tone looking up at the branches. She insisted the tone arrived from over that detail. Granted, Theodulf paused he possessed overlooked that area entirely. He listened cautiously to her explanation, acknowledging her sincerity. Rather than uncertainty, he chose to believe her. Overwhelmed with happiness, Lumina hugged Theodulf tightly, expressing her affection with innocent excitement. Now brimming with fresh determination, Theodulf set his sights on a new goal. If the tone gripped answers, it could lead him to the source of the corruption. Theodulf shared Lumina's claim with Luna. Someone possessed overheard a tone at the top of the world tree. He planned to investigate it himself. She acknowledged that local elders believed the tree possessed a soul. Intrigued, she chose to accompany him. Though Theodulf pondered building a staircase, Luna dismissed the notion entirely. They wouldn't need one at everyone. Without warning, Luna picked him up and leapt skyward effortlessly. Theodulf hardly had time to react prior to they were airborne. The sudden launch departed him wide-eyed and panicked. The ground vanished under them as Luna soared higher than expected. Amused by his dread, Luna grinned confidently, urging Theodulf to cling tightly. A stronger leap emerged, plainly coming. Spirit pounding, he nodded and braced himself shortly afterward. They landed atop an enormous branch high over the woodland, though his feet touched solid ground. His legs trembled uncontrollably. Luna teased him, enjoying his nervous state far too much. A sudden gust of wind blew leaves everyone throughout them. A tone echoed across the air, addressing them directly and by title. From the swirling foliage emerged a woman with an ethereal presence. She introduced herself as Illumia, the soul of the world tree.